page.
Make sure I pause the video.
Yeah, kill your sound on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me make sure mine's killed.
Yeah, kill the sound on the main page. I guess we've got a long delay because I still don't see it popping up yet. Hopefully everybody can see us. Hopefully we are running live. There we go. I finally see it on our page. So welcome to the show. Obviously, we've got Chris and Dom here tonight. This will hopefully be a usual thing we're doing that will rotate from channel to channel. We haven't ironed out all the actual details as of yet, but we are getting to that point. This is basically our first dry run to see how everything goes. Hopefully everybody can hear us and see us and we don't have any echo or anything weird. I don't hear anything on our end, but hopefully you are getting good reception on this. Again, we were a little hesitant with all the issues that actually Google Hangouts has had. We are running Hangouts. We do have some other things that we're in the works of. So if there is issues with Hangouts, we're hoping to still be able to bypass that as well too. So just a couple quick channel things before we get into the discussion of the day and sourcing and the whole works. I've got the frog illustration that I did. I've had several people that I've promised that I would get some options up so you can purchase the color tests for that. I actually have them all ready to go. It's just a matter of me popping some numbers in. So I will probably pop some numbers up tomorrow. So if anybody's interested in those, you can pop me a line or anything. I know 2 people I will send some notices to as well when those listings are up with some listing numbers on them. They're $25. And that includes shipping flat. They're signed, they're originals, they're all hand watercolored. So just FYI for those who I did promise that I would get them up. Again, I do apologize for the delay. I have 4 of those, so just FYI. I think everybody knows Chris, Primetime Treasure Hunter, and Dom. I totally did that in reverse. I apologize. I think everybody knows Chris, Thrift Shop Hustler, and Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunter. If you don't, you really need to go and check them out. I actually have their actual sites down below. If you'd like to hit them up too here on it, they're actually on. In fact, I don't see. Yeah, everybody here should be ready to go. You can just hit the 3 little dots, and it will. Hang on just a second. Let me get Dominique in there. I'm sorry, I tell you. That's why I say I want to say Dom.
From now on, remember?
Yeah, that's why I said I was going to say Dom. Yep. I've got a friend named, same name as Dom, and I'm going to say Dom. And he says Dominique, and it's Dominic, but they're from different countries, so I don't know if that's the difference. I promised him I wouldn't do that, and I do apologize, Dom. We're going to try and explicitly stick to Dom. I saw your name on the chat, Dom, and I didn't realize you didn't have the wrench, and that's why I said that. So, again, I apologize. It's been a long-running joke, so, again, I do apologize. Let's let them talk for a few minutes, and we'll just go into some conversation on sourcing, summer, and eBay in general. I've got Chris as the first one on my screen here, so we'll let Chris start off first if he would.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris, the Thrift Shop Hustler, professional eBay seller for the American Cancer Society. Also, Don, we're going to get you a swear jar. So every time you say Dominique, you're going to have to put a quarter in the jar.
It's going to be Dom.
But I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Hey everyone, it's Dominic, the Primetime Treasure Hunter. I'm really honored to be on Don's channel and to be together with Chris, the Thrift Shop Hustler. I've been following these guys for quite a while, and it's been really great to develop a friendship with them over the past year. And we decided that since we have so many things in common, especially our interest in collectibles, and that we've both been doing this or all of us have been doing this for decades, that it really made sense to just put our minds together and just do a single show every once in a while. So, here we are, pilot episode, and we'll see what it turns into.
Yeah, we had talked, and we all do almost the same things. Whatever we seem to know the same types of materials. We seem to know the same comics. We've all talked. We've got a semi convergent background to some extent with age and family. We all have families. We've been married for a while. all love collectibles. I think everybody here has at least collected comic books as well when they were a child. Some of us still collect them, and I'm not saying anybody here is a child or anything, so no offense on that. I love the artwork on comic book covers. I literally can't get enough of the cover wise. That's my key. And I love sci-fi fantasy. I think Dom is a Marvel. Is that not correct? You're mostly Marvel.
Well, I like them both, but I do prefer Marvel over DC. I mean, that's for sure. But I like them both.
And what's your cup of tea, Chris?
I've been a Marvel fan my whole life. I don't think there's many DC fans, to be honest.
Now, I collected Superman when I first started. It was something my father passed on to me, and I liked Batman and Spider-Man. Nobody ever bought for me, so I never had a chance to read it till I was, older. I would have probably been into Spider-Man over both Superman for sure and Batman. Now, if they had the Dark Knight saga when I was a child, I would have been all over that for sure, because the movie was just the bomb, and the series and all. So.
Yeah. Well, I actually got a really quick story I've never told anyone on any of the channels or anything before that has kind of a DC connection. When I was younger, some of you might remember, I think it was like 91 or 92, the Death of Superman number 75. They came in these special limited edition black bags that had these like kind of funeral pamphlets and kind of like a bandana. Or anyways, my dad was buying like 50 comics at a time during that time on previews. Some of you might know about previews. There's a huge thick book that would come out every month, and you can order stuff that was coming out. And he happened to order like 200 of those books, not knowing that it was going to be one of the hottest comics to come around in the last 10 years. And those things were worth like $50 a piece. He paid like maybe $1.25 a piece for those. So when we were kids, he used to like hand them to us like candy, like, oh, here. And we'd go down to the local shop and trade it for like 20, $25. So he had a bunch of those. So we would just do that every week and go to the comic book shop, trade, buy all the candy and like, comics and cards we wanted. And we lived off that thing for a whole summer.
That's pretty awesome. I've in the past we've bought out, and we were just talking about it, I bought out big lots of comics too. I love comics, the collectability wise, and as I said, the covers are just awesome in my book. Nowadays, unfortunately, most of what we sell and deal with is like a treasure hunt, and then we sell it and see what they go for. I don't save much of that anymore. I won't say everything, but I do have an Avenger 1 and a few things like that, only because the movie was out and I felt bad selling it before, I saw what the potential was on something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I am literally, I was telling you before the show, Don, I mean, I am literally surrounded by tens of thousands of comic books. I mean, I've got, long boxes and short boxes and just regular issues, just, not just in this room, but I've got them in my garage. I've got them upstairs. I've got them in the next part of the downstairs area. I mean, it's just crazy. I've got so many. So I am focusing more now actually on putting bigger lots together to, to put them online, to sell them, to clear up some more space. Even though I have a shed, I don't really want to put comics in the shed because,
moisture.
Yeah, you want to try to avoid any kind of moisture issues. Even though I've kind of weather protected it, I still want to try to avoid it.
Well, that brings up a point, and I'm going to ask Chris this one here first. As a seller too, when you've had stuff at your house, we're all married, what does your wife say about the overflow from your storage facility, so to speak?
Well, for me personally, I have I have an attic, which I keep most of the eBay stuff in, and I also have two storage units. So
two storage units.
So, a lot of that death piles, you can't see it. So I get away with it.
Yeah, that's the same. I'm safe. We've literally have a whole floor with just eBay stuff on it. And Dom, we've already heard, I saw your shed come in. So I know, I don't know if that was a necessity for having a great relationship or not, but I know how overflow can be. We used to have it in our bedroom, a huge 8-foot tall shelf, just jam packed, and then it was a second one, and then we didn't have a bedroom anymore. So I don't know what your guys' takes on that.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I've always wanted a shed, and this just gave me a great excuse to get one. I mean, I really didn't need it, after a certain point. And, when stuff starts, my wife, everyone knows Mrs. Primetime, she's really great. Where she kind of will draw the line is if stuff starts hanging around in the kitchen or in the area where we normally watch TV. Like if I keep like a box of comic books there for like a couple days, then she's going to let me know about it and tell me like, you got to get this out of here. But this area down here, which I jokingly refer to as Primetime Treasure headquarters, this is basically my own spot now. Like she doesn't even come down here. Like if she comes down here, she jokes she'll have like a panic attack. So she knows she knows to just stay away. So, but I am trying to make more space so I could bring in more inventory.
So you can fill it back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
If you saw my kitchen right now, my wife can't use it, so it'll be gone when the show's over. But we bought a huge lot of stuff and it's spread. We've been sorting in a lot, so literally it's like 8 foot. I've got 2 extensions we've got in our kitchen table. It sits 6 normally, and it is full. The floor is full. Our living room has the sofa pushed to the side right now, and it's just piles of stuff sorting it. It's just a disaster right now, but.
Yeah, well, Don, we're joking about it, but I'm sure there are people who are watching who are, are newer into reselling. And as their business starts growing, this really can be a source of significant conflict that starts to develop between partners. And it could really lead to, significant strain in relationships, and marriages could, even dissolve over the issue over time. So I think it's real important that, people are mindful of what the spouse is thinking. If you could get them involved in your business somehow, that's a good idea. It's also real important to make sure you could show that person, if they're not into reselling, that this is really bringing in money to help the family. And it might seem kind of crazy right now. We could work on that, but it's not just junk that's sitting around, provided you actually are selling it and, making a profit on it. If not, then you really do have a problem and you got to address that. But, it's a big topic area that doesn't get talked about too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky for myself where, my wife sees the benefits of, making the money off of eBay. And ever since we've been together, she's known that I've been this kind of reseller, crazy kind of guy that goes into the thrift shops and like rummages through everything. And, I'm a fan that likes to go to Ross and dig through stuff. She's not like that. So we kind of balance each other out. And I think that's like key, is balancing each other out for sure.
Yeah, I get the shopping because like I do RA, and I know you have too. I don't think Dom does a lot of RA, but doing RA, I always say I'm just going to go pick up like soda or whatever. I'm going to go to Walmart or wherever I'm going, and I always end up seeing a table of a discount, and I can't stop without scanning something. It's a fact. I mean, I can't say I'm addicted, but if you see a chance to make a couple $100 sitting on a table in front of you, I don't care what you're doing. If you're there just getting a Twinkie from the store, I'm going to look for it, so.
Well, yeah, Don, I mean, I think that's just, it's like in our blood, like I told you the story the other day when you had me on your channel. For those who didn't see it, I was driving back home from the flea market and a couple garage sales. And I told myself, I'm going home. I'm not going to stop at any more sales. And then I pass one and I look at it, I kind of get a glance of like a few things out of the corner of my eyes, and I drive up to the light and I'm like, forget it. I turn around and I go right back to the sale. And I bought like a whole bunch of awesome stuff. I'm so glad I stopped off, but it's just, it really can be like an addiction. I mean, it's just, it's just the thrill of the hunt is real. And you just, you don't want to pass up on something that's right there, just like you're saying with the RA stuff.
Well, I wasn't supposed to be sourcing. We've pretty much died it off on sourcing. That's why the kitchen issue right now is a big problem, because I made a promise that wouldn't happen, and I bought a massive assortment of paper items, and I just couldn't pass it up. I mean, it's.
So when you came home with that, what did Marky say? Was she just like roll her eyes and laugh? Like, did she just?
I called ahead of time.
Or did she get mad?
I called and asked her to move the furniture.
Oh my God.
My son bought. I got my son one of those Tempur-Pedic beds. So we had big stuff coming in today also, and we're moving his futon around and putting the bed in there. So we already had stuff moved, but she had to move it even further. So the house is pretty much by tomorrow it'll all be fine. But as of today, the whole day has been shot with actually doing anything in the kitchen. Let's just say that.
No, I think that's pretty funny that you had to call ahead. You're like,
yeah,
move the furniture. We got 30,000 LPs in the truck.
No, I wouldn't do that again. It's going to be a while before I buy a big, huge assortment of LPs. I had that huge assortment that I should. It's like almost 9,000, I think we ended up. I've only sold like 12 of them. 12. And 12 out of all of those, and I only listed like 20 of them. So the rest are still sitting there. I haven't even sorted through like the bottom half of those yet at all. I
Dom,
don't
have
know.
you seen that video that was actually one of the first videos I saw of yours recently in your new kind of stuff going on, Don, is when you had like, you were showing a time lapse of going and picking up, like, I think, would you do 3 or 4 different trips to get that out?
Four trips, and it was a
Yeah.
lot. That was a long day. It was snowing. It was nasty out. It was like I want to say like 5 degrees outside or something. Maybe it was even cooler than that. I don't remember.
That video is what made me subscribe to you. And I didn't even look at your other stuff that you did before. That was like one of the first videos that I saw of yours. And I was like, this guy's hardcore, dude. I like this guy a lot. So I was like, subscribe.
Bulk. It's all about bulk for us. I'm 90 to almost 95% of everything I get in massive quantities, or at least I'm at a Pickers and I'm buying like 60, 70 items all at the same time, one lump sum price, and I'm done. That's the best way to do it for sourcing. Why don't we go around, and I'll let Chris start, and we'll talk about, your favorite sourcing locations and maybe make some recommendations for those watching. If we haven't hit the like button too, I see we've got well over 100 people, like 120 right now watching. If you haven't hit the like button, show us some love, hit that like button here. If you haven't subscribed to Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunter, or Chris, Thrift Shop Hustler, you crazy, you need to go do it right now. So go ahead, let's get some thumbs up, and let's get those subscriptions going up on the other folks too here. But Chris, if you want to start off on some sourcing information.
I'll source from anywhere I could find. I mean, I really love online arbitrage, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's kind of a dying thing because there's a lot more people that know about certain things now. But like, something like baseball card collections or comic book collections or action figure collections or whatever, you can go online, eBay, Mercari, shopgoodwill.com, even like local ads for Facebook. And I'll look at lots, like you said, like collections. And if I see some value in there, I'll go ahead and do that. But of course I like, thrift shopping, garage selling and all that. But I really enjoy online arbitrage because you can do it from the comfort of your own home and your underwear. So you can't beat that.
Yeah, for me, I tend to go to a lot of estate sales. So if you watch my channel, when I go out and I do my, my haul videos and my hunts, that's where I typically wind up going. I do also a lot from the flea market. We have a really good flea market here in Central New York on Sundays, so I'll spend a few hours there usually and do pretty well. And then, round up by going to the garage sales. I like to go to community garage sales if they have them. You really have to know the neighborhoods and the areas in terms of, where are the best places to go with the older houses that'll tend to have the vintage stuff. So, I know kind of how to kind of circulate myself and navigate the local map, and you'll get that with experience. If you're new, rummage sales I'll go to every once in a while, but I like to create unique situations for myself in which I basically create my own picks by putting up ads on Craigslist that specifically say that I'm trying to source a specific type of item, or even a general type of situation where I'll say I'm just interested in doing a partial estate pick, and people will call me and tell me to come over. A relative died and say, hey, come over, and I basically have my own private estate sale set up. I've done that many times, making relationships with your local estate sale dealers so you could get advanced leads to come in sometimes and clear out a large part of the house. That's how I got one of my biggest ever comic book collections. Reminds me of the story you're talking about, Don, where he did 4 truckloads. This one I couldn't put on video because it was a private situation and they didn't want it filmed, but I did the same thing. 4 truckloads just back and forth, just completely filled the truck up, and it was just crazy how much stuff I wound up getting. And it was about $1,000 for 4 truckloads, but it was totally worth it. And that's the kind of things that I like to do, and that's kind of my main sourcing avenues.
Yeah, bulk I could say is my favorite. I mean, quantity wise, you got to be careful. I tell a lot of people this, that just because you see a whole bunch of stuff for really cheap money, like 1,000 records for say 100 or 200 bucks, it doesn't mean they're good records. It does, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're going to buy, just because there's a large quantity of something doesn't mean it's a good deal. Like, you got to look through everything. I bought some, like, maybe it was 6,000 or 7,000 78s. And it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is over an hour away from my house, one direction. It was going to be 4 trips. So when you're looking through stuff like this, you got to take into account your gas and your time. Records, 78s especially, weigh a ton. And I mean, a ton, literally a ton. That many records is probably, 2,000-3,000 pounds or more of weight. So even if you got a small rental truck or even a big one, it's a lot of weight to carry and haul around. You got gas and everything else. So whenever I'm looking at one of these huge lots that we purchased, I look through enough to know how much money I'm going to get, a certain percentage. So if let's say it's $100 lot, I want to at least come back out of this with 400 or 500 at the end of the day. So I'm not going to stop looking through whatever I'm going to buy until I hit that mark. That's just how I do it, because then I'm safe at the end of the day, because I got, employees, sort time, list times, photographing, and all the other stuff that goes with it. So, I pass up on deals that, a lot of other people think I'm crazy, but it's a lot of work for some of this. And maybe if you're just getting into it and you see one of these massive lots, it's a great deal. It might be great for somebody like that, because then you can just piddle around and list it. But for when you're moving stuff in and out like we do, and you're selling a ton of stuff every single week, you got to have movement on this. You can't afford to sit. And I know I've said that I've got a ton of records I haven't touched, which is true. So that's part of the reason we're trying not to source. But you've got people that call you, like we've got pickers. So if they call us and I don't show up, they're just going to call somebody else. And if I don't show up a couple times, I may not get calls anymore. And it's unfortunate. I guess unfortunate for me, and somebody else would say that's fortunate, but I can only take so much stuff in, and you gotta, there's a big fine line where it turns into a fiasco versus, your well-run machine. And we're on growing pains now. So anyway, we just got a lot of stuff right now.
I find it interesting that you said that when you look at a lot for $100 that you want to get for 500. Like for me, kind of my mindset is like, am I going to break even? That's like the very first thing I look at. And then you're saying 400 or 500. That's like to the next level, where you're like, even if I break even if I make 200, it might not be worth your time if you have a lot of things to deal with, like, listing like, 10,000 items to get your money back. So it is a time factor. And I think one of the biggest things that resellers do, including myself, is we don't respect our time as much, because basically we're not really getting paid by the hour, because we're doing this on our own. So it's kind of the thing where we don't think about it, but our time is extremely valuable in this business.
Yeah, I can say time has been my biggest factor. I mean, we've got employees, and we've got like 9 of us doing it right now. And I'm literally going to probably bring another one in, just because I can't handle what we're doing now. Growing pains, you're going to go through them. Most people that I see here on YouTube and, off from here have the thoughts of maybe I should get an employee. Chris gets it. I'm sure Dom is to that point too. There's only so much you can do, whether you get a virtual assistant, which I personally would never do, or, you literally hire somebody or contract or whatever the case may be. We couldn't do this. I could never be where I'm at without the family involved, without, bringing other people in, because there's just, it takes such a long time, so much of your time to get 30, 40, 50, 60,000 items up. And anybody who's listed, all day long from morning till night, a 10-hour day of listing, it's a lot of time. You're tired, your eyes are bothering you by the end of the day, and you don't want to see another listing, but, next morning you got to get up and do the same thing. So, there's a factor in this.
Yeah, time is super valuable, and especially if you're doing what we're doing with the social media. That if you think about it, when you're making videos, you're not listing, or you're not packing or something like that. So you've got to try to do it in a way that makes sense. At least that's how I try to approach it. I'm trying to do more multitasking type of videos. Like last night, I posted a video where I was doing an unboxing, and I needed to do that unboxing anyway. So I figured, why not just document it, for people who are interested in learning more about comics and graphic novels and that sort of stuff. And I had my wife helping out. She's off camera, but I showed people what she did in terms of sorting a whole box of comics for me. And in the morning, she said to me, "Yeah, I really didn't feel like I helped that much last night." I said, "No, are you kidding me? Absolutely helped, because there's no way I would have been able to, do what we wound up accomplishing last night if you didn't help out with it." And so, that's one thing in terms of the time management. I'm continuously working on trying to evolve with that and come up with new systems. The other thing is in terms of, I agree, Don, when you're looking at a collection, I have people, when they reach out to me through Craigslist, they have to send me photos. That's number one, is a safety issue too. I need to have proof that they have the items. I just saw an article I posted to my Facebook group today where there were a string of 8 armed robberies from people who were basically setting up fake sales for people, and they would show up and they would think that they're going to, get something, and all of a sudden these guys come out with guns and, and rob them. So I require proof that the person has the items to begin with, and then I look at the pictures and I negotiate price over as much as possible over the internet, so that through email, maybe a phone call, depending on how comfortable I am with the situation.
You try to get a bottom line, basically, is what you're going to get, like their lowest they'll take for it.
Yeah, or I try to get close. If I get close, I can say, you know what, we're close enough. Let's just meet up and we'll talk about it from there. And we could talk about throwing things in and adding this and taking that away and all this kind of stuff. But I try to get as close as possible to a price and figure out, okay, am I comfortable with this price that I know I could make a significant profit on it, whether that's tripling my money, 4 times my money, whatever. I definitely want to see where's my money back quick, and then what's all the extra on top of that.
Yeah, that's for me. Like if we buy a big lot, I do this every single time. That's why we've got the kitchen occupied. We're going to pull out the high dollar stuff. I'm going to get my $1,000 back out of it. I'm going to sell whatever I need to sell to get the money back out of it. And the rest of it's probably going to get stored, sorted. Like some of the postcards that are up there will probably just be put with other postcards from the same cities. And, that kind of thing. All the holiday stuff's going to go in one box. And, we'll figure out when we're going to list it. Most paper stuff, at least we figure out. But I wouldn't have bought this much stuff because it filled my van up if I didn't have at least the option to make a couple $1,000 on this purchase here. And it's well more than what I could imagine. So, you got to jump on it sometimes. And the other thing I can say is the more you do this, the more you have in the bank to purchase is the best deal. I know a lot of people will just go out and spend it and not set a purchase account aside. We've got accounts, several different accounts. So if something big walks my way, I'm going to shell out the money, like the record lot that I got. If it was really as good as they said, which it is, it's a monstrous lot. I was set to go to $5,000 on it, and that would have been fine. You got to be able to afford to sink a ton of money into some things and be confident that you know what you're doing enough to do that, because you don't want to blow $5,000 and find out you didn't get crap out of it, basically. So I search through everything. You build up your time, so the longer you've been on, the better deals you can get and the more money you can spend on those deals. The more you spend, usually the better you're going to come out on it, because you're going to be able to buy it in a massive bulk. The bigger you buy, the lower the per item cost is, which for me is key because it brings my ROI way up at top. I mean, I've got 80% profit margin after all is said and done, my labor, expenses, and everything. The only thing that doesn't come out of that is my income tax. Other than that, every dime of expenses is gone, and I still get around 80% on most of what we buy. But again, I buy everybody else's junk. Everybody thinks what I take is junk. People laugh at me when I buy these big box lots of this ripped up looking paper, and I'm like laughing all the way to the bank, and I literally mean that because it goes that way for us, at least.
Right. I always laughed on when I hear you say that you've got peanuts into something, because I feel the same way. I'm like, listen, I've got peanuts into each one of these comic books. I got peanuts into each one of these postcards or pieces of paper or books or action figures or whatever it is. And that's because I bought it in bulk. So, it's the only way you're going to get those kind of prices.
There's one thing I want to touch on that Don mentioned, and it's a really good one, is I wish I would have learned this a long time ago, is creating separate accounts from your business and your personal one. That helps big time when you're crunching the numbers for your CPA. I have a CPA, but I have to crunch all my numbers and do all that kind of stuff. So having a separate bank account will save you so much time in the long run when it comes to doing your taxes.
Let me piggyback on that. He's 100% right. Not only should you just have let's put it the basics for a bank account system. If you're doing online selling, you need a personal account and you need a regular business account. Most banks here, at least where I'm at, I can get a free business account, 2, 3, 4 business accounts for free. The other thing to think about is if you've got a CPA, we do several. I've got a bank account for payroll because I've got a separate accountant that does payroll. And then I've got a full-fledged CPA that just does my taxes. They pay out of a bank account that you have to supply in this state. They pay your workman's comp and unemployment and state and federal taxes, your employment taxes. So you have to have, I've got transfer accounts is what we call them. I don't know what everybody else calls them. So I've got a main account that's a business account, and then I've got sub accounts, my transfer account. So one, I transfer money in for payroll, and another one I transfer in money for taxes. So we actually have 3 bank accounts set up for that. And we also have a bank account for our art business, and then another bank account for Amazon, just because we do other things as well too. I do wholesale, and for invoice wise, if you do wholesale, it's like online RA, like Chris is talking about here, retail arbitrage. But we do a lot of wholesale, so I have to have a separate one on that, because sometimes I do write checks for it, because sometimes I'm able, with the whole checking way it works, to sell enough to pay for it before that check's even cashed. So that's the play on this. So we've actually got like 6 different bank accounts. We only pay for one of them, mind you. So it just depends on how you set up. No way should anybody who's running a business reselling have one bank account, their personal account. You know, LLC to begin with, S corp second day, I would say, after that. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm set up as an LLC as well. One of the best things that I did was to hire an accountant. Saved me so much stress and so much time, because every year when I would do my taxes and I would owe, I would feel, and my wife would just say, "Are you sure you did it right?" And I'm like, "Well, I put everything right into TurboTax, so I think I did it right. I'm pretty sure." But every year just came with this one big bill in April. It's just stunk. So the great thing about having an account and running everything through the business is that they could set you up really easily for the quarterly payments, and so it's just not as big of a blow. And then if you wind up overpaying, which I actually did, I overpaid a little bit. I didn't get any money back, but I didn't owe anything that first time around. So I had like a little bit of a cushion there. So for the next quarter, I had to wait till I made my payments, and my payment was actually a little bit lower than it was the first time around. So I was very, very happy, very pleased. I would highly suggest an accountant if you're getting into this and you don't have one set up yet.
Definitely, definitely. Same with you, Chris, right? Everybody here says accountant. So
Yeah.
if you haven't done full-fledged business on your own, I've done all the paperwork and done business on my own, and working for somebody else. So I've got the ability to do it myself, but I would never waste my time doing it. It'd be a waste of my time. I'm no pro on it. I know how to do it. I've done it for a big business, but I'm more valuable, and Chris is more valuable. Dom is more valuable to actually do the business aspect of it and just have somebody do the numbers. And I feel that way. I used to say I only want to touch my own numbers, but I look at them myself too. So I know where we're at any given day within a dime. I would say, as long as you know your business, don't just give it to an accountant and then never pay attention to what's going on, because accountants can rip you off as well too, especially if they've got access to your bank, which I've got 2 separate accountants who have access to 2 of our bank accounts. It's just so much easier to do it that way, and you don't have much to worry about. They take their payments out of it. I get the notices. It's all done online now for most all of this anyway. So I don't know if you guys have like business gateways, Dom or Chris, for your state where they're processed, or is this something you still have to mail away?
Well, I do have to mail. I mean, my accountant's awesome. He sends me basically every quarter. He sends me all the forms, and he just says, "This is how much you have to pay. This is what you have to write on the check, and just mail it into this envelope that I gave you, and that's it." And just gets taken care of like that. Now with state taxes, that was different. That what used to be quarterly, and I would have to actually log into a web file system in New York to file my my state sales tax. But now that eBay is collecting the state sales tax in so many states, including New York now, New York just got added to it. So if you don't know that and you're from New York, eBay's been collecting that since somewhere around the beginning of June. So now they switched me over in New York to a yearly filer for state sales tax. I don't have to mess around with that once a year, which is good. And don't make the mistake of thinking that you don't have to report just because eBay is collecting it. They still want to know what your gross sales are. So you still have to file even if you don't owe technically any state sales tax to them directly from you. You still have to let them know as a business of record that someone else has been collecting it for you, and who that is, that will be eBay, and you have to let them know eBay's information.
Yeah, I know that's in your state. Our state, I don't think they've switched over yet. I haven't gotten a notice yet.
Yeah,
Usually when I log in,
yeah.
Yeah, it's state by state on that one here. I know ours is going to be on the list, which will be good. Did you guys ever send in your I don't know what you buy online to resell or anything, but you got your exempt slips. eBay is being very picky on that, and they've been returning and rejecting everybody on that from what I've heard. I don't know if you guys did that or not.
I remember you recommending that. I'm glad you brought it up because I meant to file that. And it's weird that they're I didn't file it yet, but it's
I
weird
got a
that
rejection because they didn't take the form that everyone in the state takes for that. So,
that's bizarre, especially how much they were promoting it and telling you, hey, this is a new thing. And then they start rejecting them from everyone. It's crazy.
Oh, you're talking about the business license
the
exempt?
exempt, yeah,
Yeah.
the exempt. So I know at least 7 people besides myself that got refused, even though they're using the form. And then I had to go up and look and find out that the form that they want me to use has less information on the form I actually submitted. So it doesn't make any sense. But
Well, that's eBay for you, Don. It doesn't
yeah,
always
that is. They just sent me. I'm in the oh shoot, what's it called? The expressions. I'm in expressions with eBay, right? And they just sent us one here asking about our opinion on what we think if eBay, is treating the sellers right or not. So I let them have an earful. I know they don't know who's saying it, and I don't really care if they know it's me or not. But I vented every single thing I could think of that's honest and sincere about what they're doing to the site. Because back in the day, I would have never thought about being on other platforms because eBay was the bomb. But eBay is taking a less and less share of the market, and it's their own fault at this point. They're going to nickel and dime us to death, is what I told them, and that's what I honestly feel. The people in charge now haven't run. They've never done a online auction or sale, I would gather, in my life. They've never done it. They don't know what we do, and the aspect that this is our income. They're making what, $10 million a year or something, and just incentives. I think the CEO, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's even more than that.
Yeah, what's crazy is I went to one of those eBay Upfront events in Los Angeles, and by the way, there's one in New York in October for anyone out there. It's a free event. It's put on by eBay, and there was one in Los Angeles about a month ago, and the sellers knew so much more than the eBay employees that were there to actually help us, which I thought was incredibly crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I've heard that from somebody else. There was another one of those in. I think it's another YouTube channel I saw it on that they went to one. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
there was one in Miami, Florida, I want to say earlier in the year, like April or May or something like that. Yeah.
In all honesty, I've never been to any of those events that's been done here. And there was a meetup here from some other group, and I didn't even get a chance to get to that. I think it was in Cincinnati or something, but I don't have much time. I'm thinking about doing a meetup here locally, but because I've had about a half a dozen people that said they'd 100% be there, but maybe a sourcing day. I don't know if you guys ever thought about doing that either.
No, I don't like people.
I'm not a big social person, but I do enjoy talking about, sitting down and shooting pardon me, with folks who like doing what I do. Because you don't run into a lot of people that are diehard collector resellers like us. At least I don't. You guys are like the first real 3 that are diehard, as far as I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't ruled it out at some point in the future. The main, basically, place that I get asked about that is through my Facebook group, because now that it's up to almost 10,000 people, the more that it grows, people ask, hey, when are we going to do a meetup? When are we going to do a meetup? So, I mean, Central New York is kind of strategically, located in place that you could get people coming from, all directions around it. So maybe one day I will do something like that. I'm not sure, but I want to grow it out a little bit more before I formally set something like that up. Steve Rakin, he does one in Connecticut, but his base that he's drawing from is 125,000 people on his channel. So he's got he's got a big kind of catchment base to grab from. But I don't know. Well, we'll see. Maybe one day.
I thought about that only because if I go out sourcing sometimes these days, I never thought about, but I usually run into somebody who knows who I am from the YouTube channel, and I never thought about it. But again, if I'm only going to collectible shops, did we just lose Chris?
Oh,
yeah,
no.
looks like we just lost Chris.
Oh,
Maybe something happened on his end. We'll give him a shot back in.
well, all you have to do is click to get back in.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. But I totally lost my train of thought now on that. Yeah, Chris is definitely gone.
We eliminated him, so it's just me and you, Don.
No. Hopefully he gets himself back in here. Let me drop him a text just to make sure doesn't have technical issues. Maybe. Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's like a meetup. Obviously, we all 3 couldn't meet up because Chris is on the other side of the world, basically.
Yeah.
The biggest
You're back, Chris.
I'm back. No, you guys froze.
We were playing Reseller Survivor for a minute. Like we thought you guys.
Last one standing.
Well, here's the thing. Like I go to social events all the time, and I feel like I always feel I'm the guy always in the corner, not talking to anyone, because I feel like we have such a unique kind of experience in our lives, and I feel like I can't really kind of talk to other people because everyone wants to talk about sports and want to talk about other stuff that to me, it just seems like mindless conversation. But, you know, when you get a group of resellers together, you have something in common to talk about. And every once in a while, when I go to these parties or these social events, you'll find someone that's actually interested in reselling or has some kind of side business like that. And it's one of those things, but definitely meetups are really cool. And I definitely highly suggest people going to those because networking is definitely fun, especially in the reseller business, because, you know, each of us here have been in this business for a long time. And I'm always learning something new from even newer sellers we still learn from. So it's definitely a plus to go out there and talk and meet up with people.
Yeah, to touch on that, Chris had Popeye's postcards on the other day, and I have been through scanners, 7 of them, and I still have 2 or 3 here that I haven't used in forever. I've got a nice professional format, large size one that I do for artwork. That's a different story, but all the regular scanners for like postcards and stuff, I never would have messed with another scanner had I not seen Popeye's video. The Epson that he has and recommends does just what he says it does. It's the bomb. I've showed it in some of my videos too. I'll probably have it in another one, but if you do paper, Popeye had the best scanner recommendation, and it is the best one. I've got a Epson DS 510. It's a duplex scanner. You learn something from all kinds of people. It just depends. We sell a ton of postcards, so had I had this before, you know, it would have probably saved me a world of pain. Not that the taking photos on a stand isn't pretty quick, but it's the convenience and the ability to just have this thing plugged in next to your thing and just drop it down and you're done with it. Nothing. You don't have to do anything. You can set it up with borders. You can set it up to adjust the photos. They go to SD cards, everything we do, or it goes to the server. And then from the server, anybody in the place can get it. Or if it's an SD card and somebody wants to list outside in the patio or something, they can take the laptop out there and I don't have to worry about anything. The Wi-Fi doesn't go outside the house. So safety reasons, of course.
I actually was going to ask you a question about that. Do you need software, specialty software for that particular printer? You can download it from
Nope,
the Epson.
you don't need a thing. It's all off Epson. I bought it used. I got I think $100 into it. Not only did I get that one, I bought a second one. I have 2 Epson 510s. I bought them both off eBay. I think the second one was like $120 and it had the booklet with it. So I'll probably go over it and sell the booklet and keep the scanner because the booklets go for like 20 or so on their own. It's well worth it. Everything you need for it's online. You know, they're all tied into each other. I mean, it works at the bottom. The only thing I wished it had was a port for an SD card in, you know, something along that line where I could just dump it right onto an SD card. Because we usually have it hooked up in a server and I got to mess with stuff and access. And if somebody's messing around and wants to mess with it from another laptop that we didn't assign, I have to mess with, you know, authorization and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying one of those. I talked to Don earlier before the show, everyone, that, you know, I'm going to be going headlong into postcards. So that's definitely one of those things I'm going to be using. So Dom, don't be putting comic books in those things if you get one of them.
They need to have a comic book scanner. That would make my life so much easier, man.
You know, I'm actually messing around with because the scanner
on one.
well, the Epson scanner has 2 settings on it, and it's basically you could adjust the distance. That's why I bought a second one. I'm going to try and play with things. I get magazines left and right and photos that sometimes have tape and things like that on them. The Epson will run through photos and stuff even with staples in it, believe it or not, which I was surprised. So if it'll do that, I'm thinking maybe I can figure out some way to get a thickness gauge on it where I can actually get it to run magazines. I know there's some industrial ones that do stuff like that. And I know there's other scanners and abilities that do just massive stuff super quick. So I'm looking into it because I've got like 2,000 magazines here that I want to crank out and paper items like that too. So who knows? Maybe something will come up.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, I don't have the postcard scanner myself yet because I'm just starting to get into, you know, acquiring these big postcard collections. And I'm sure eventually it's something that I'm going to, you know, look towards depending on how well I do with the postcards. Actually, Chris, you just got one of my postcards the other day.
I did.
Did you get it yet?
I did. And I didn't even post anything about it. But yeah, I got that and you packed it very well. So thank you, man.
Thanks, man. It was a cool black and white one. Evans Falls.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Now I think you named it Real Photo Postcard, but I don't think it was. I think it was a lithograph. But that's one of the things is Don, you probably know more than I do. Is Do real photographs, they don't print those on like the matte paper, right? Is there any real photo?
There are some on matte paper, and there's also
Okay.
some that will be blue, and there are also some that'll be red, like cyanotypes and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're
So
on
Dom,
non-glossy paper.
okay. So Dom, yours was a real photo postcard. My apologies.
Take a closer look at it, though. Just because it's on matte, it doesn't mean it's a real photo. There's other printing techniques. I would look on the back if you can see something to determine if it is or not. There are some both ways, or there's like 5 different ways you can find those kinds of postcards. But take a real close look. Obviously, pull out a loop and look at it with a loop. But if it has dots, it's obviously not a photo. The back's key too. You can't just look at the front, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was a really cool postcard, dude. So I'm glad I was able to find something in your shop for that time to buy it. But yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was awesome. The one thing, Don, that you did say though that just struck me to pass on, especially to people who are new, because I just started doing this recently. You mentioned uploading your photos to a server, and I started kind of to do something like that recently, where I'm automatically just after I take my photos, they automatically go straight onto the cloud, so that once I go over to my computer to just put up the put up the pictures in my listing, they're just right there automatically. I don't have to. What I used to do is I used to just send it to myself, like in an email or something, to an account where I just had pictures. Then I'd have to open that email, download the email, edit it, and then put it, save it to a file or something like that, into a folder. Now I don't have to do any of that. It's just right there. And all these little things that you keep coming up with technology, that save a minute here, save a couple minutes there, they all add up and just make you be able to be more efficient in your business. So I'm continuing to just try to evolve with that and make those advancements.
Well, let me touch on that for just a second here. I'm going to turn my camera over for just a second here. This is literally where I usually take a lot of photos at. The camera is a Nikon D5300 with Wi-Fi, and it goes straight to the server or wherever I want to set it up. Most of my stuff is done that way. I've got scanners over here. Everything goes to the server or an SD card, and that is just so much more efficient. The camera itself corrects the photo, so I don't correct anything. Once I get to eBay, pretty much these days, all we do is upload the photo. Literally it creates a border around it. We zoom in, of course, on some better stuff, but to streamline everything is streamlined. I don't care if we had to spend extra money to get the Wi-Fi and the camera, or to have the server. I use server 2007 server, Windows Server, mainframe server we have here. It runs, all the laptops go through that, and I do have quite a few laptops here, so everything goes through that. And it helps too, because I can block off access to certain things and certain sites if someone's here, because there's people that have keys to my house that work for us. So if I'm off for something, they'll run the business, or mail and stuff out, usually is what they mostly do, or maybe they'll list. But server wise, I can have access blocked for many things, and there's no way to get around it because everything goes through the server. So I'm a safety nut, so I go overboard, I guess many people would say. But I don't have any intrusions. We've got 2 firewalls because I've got a subnet in my house. So if they got into the house, they'd still have to get into the subnet, and it's got way more security than the house does. So
yeah, that's good. Sounds like Fort Knox over there, Don.
You gotta take about you gotta think of it that way. If you take a safety class in college and see how easy it is, because part of what we did in college was hacking into stuff. I mean, systems that are closed systems and stuff. But if you realize how easy it is for somebody to steal your stuff, I can drive in front of somebody's house and steal their Wi-Fi signal, get into their system through their printer. The list of things you can do from the street parked in front of somebody's house is incredibly insane.
So I assume you have a VPN set up?
I do not have a VPN.
Oh,
okay. No, I do not. I'm not going to do the, most people I know who have a VPN do it so they can get channels on Netflix and stuff from other countries and stuff that are blocked out here, or watch YouTube videos from other countries that are blocked out too. I'm not going to mess with all that. I don't hide everything that way. Obviously, I don't have any, nothing's visible from the street. I'll say everything's hidden. I've changed every password, every name. They're changed weekly and monthly, depending on which password we're talking about. But
wow,
VPN, well, that's not. I mean, I just do it one specific day. It's force of habit. In college, they force you to change it, and I've just always done it since that way. Or at my employment, whenever I worked as a regional or a GM, they changed the password at least every 30 days. And if
Yeah.
a manager disappeared, you had to fire somebody. Everybody's password changed that day, right then and there. You didn't leave until everybody's password was changed, just in case the password was given out, and all the other aspects of it. So working as a regional, my password changed weekly, and I do mean weekly, because just in case I was in a store and there was people scanning or trying to pick up signals or something, I had to change it all the time, and that was just security feature. So I do that still.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Don, do you mind if I just kind of change subject just for a quick second and respond to something in the chat? It's not really totally changing subjects because we're just talking about postcards, but this, I don't know, this might be something we want to do on the show at one point, is just to kind of throw out kind of random objects at one another and see each other react to it. I was talking about the postcards, and Crystal Rain had seen one of my videos where I bought some postcards. She's like, who's the one who had the squeaky postcard? She's like, I never had seen those before. So Don, I don't know if you've seen these before, but I got
tons of them. They go for about $10.
These are from France, and they squeeze like that. I joked when I showed these in the video that if these were made in China, the squeaking mechanism would have broken like after 2 squeezes. But these are super old.
Most of them are cats, dogs, mice.
Yeah.
I've seen some clown circus ones. Sometimes they'll have like springs for a tail on them. They'll have fuzzy stuff on them. Flocking is what it's called. If you see a fuzzy one like a Santa with the beard, that's called flocking.
That's what they call them in Funko too. Funko Pops, they're flocked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The other thing that most people miss on the cards is when they see the glitter on them, they call it glitter. That's not glitter. If it's 1910 postcard, that's mica. That's ground up rocks that are used on all those postcards. It's mica. They've been using mica since maybe 1860s, I think, is the oldest I've ever seen a piece of printed material with mica on it. That's the other thing. And the other thing that they see with the indentations where the image is raised is embossing. I know my postcards like the back of my hand because we've been selling postcards since. It's the one item when I traveled as a regional. I'm in an airplane. I've got, I can fit 1,000 postcards in my suitcase and still not fill up my suitcase. So I always bought postcards wherever I went. At least, as I was always bored, if my wife couldn't go with me and we didn't get to travel together, I spent a lot of time in Boston, and I've been in Whittier, California for a long time. Worked in Denver for a long time. I flew back and forth from Florida to DC without the wife and my newborn for a while until I got everything established. And I always bought postcards. So postcards are one of the areas, or shirt buttons, clothing buttons, uniform buttons. Ton of money into those. I mean, a ton of money into buttons.
Yeah, the other good things about the postcards too, Don, is I took them with me when I went on my business trip to Chicago, and I was photographing them there, and I was listing some of them. Like, they travel well, and they're easy to protect, and that's another just advantage of them, compared to like a big, you're not going to take like a big box of comic books or magazines or toys with you to list, so the postcards are perfect for that.
What you could do too, if you get that scanner, you could just put a whole bunch on a chip. I don't go anywhere without a couple laptops. If we go out of town, the wife's got hers and I got mine, and sometimes the kids might take one. But so literally, you can scan them before you leave. I could scan 1,000 postcards in an hour or two and just take them with me. And the images are so good on that scanner. We do 600 DPI with that Epson scanner. So literally, it's like 4 times life size. You're not going to miss anything. You don't need the card in front of you when it's that clear. And right. You set it up. It literally straightens the image. If as long as you're paying attention and you adjust the settings before you start scanning, and you compare. I usually scan an image. I'll do preview on the Epson, and to make sure the colors match. And I'll literally hold it up as close as I can and make sure the colors. I actually have a card you can use. It's like a photographer's gradient card, I think they're called. And as long as it matches, boom, I just start cranking those out there. We do them one at a time. I don't do the stacks, but we do them one at a time. And as fast as you can stick the card in there, it's scanning them that quick. At 600 DPI. Now, if you set it to like 75 DPI, they're just falling through the scanner. You don't even have time to put another card in. I do the 600 DPI because with 600 DPI, the zoom ins work better. And I know Popeye, as Chris and Popeye were talking, he just likes to get them up. I get more money. I charge more than some of what other people do. And I haven't looked at Popeye's, and I'm not criticizing him in any way, shape, or form, because he's got the bomb going out with postcards. I don't have as many postcards up. I've got way more trade cards than he does, than he has postcards. But you know, you got to get a flow that works. And I'd rather set on them a little longer and get more money personally. It's less stuff to ship out, and I make more money that way. You know, it just depends on you guys or how you feel about doing stuff, and you know where your time is more valuable at. I got employees, so it's not killing my time anyway, at least.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's true. You know, time management is one of the biggest problems that resellers complain about, and eventually getting an employee is something that if you're growing, you're going to have to do. As people always say, well, how do you find the time? How do you find the time? And the answer is sometimes you have to buy the time, and that's one way you buy the time.
You don't find it otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I'm such a perfectionist that every time I've tried to hire family members or do something like that, it's always so frustrating because you're like, no, you got to do it this way, not that way. And then I think I got to get, you know, kind of let them kind of do their thing.
It's a give or take with hiring people. You know, I got good guys working for me. Everybody here does a good job. You know, I don't really have any complaints that I can think of. But again, I've known these kids since they were kids for, you know, a long time. They've been coming to my house since we've been in this area. So, you know, I got lucky. As a person who's had, you know, a couple thousand people under him at any given time when I was a regional, and as a store manager was 110 or better on most stores, there's a give and take with your employees. You know, you've got to be able to draw a line somewhere to, you know, let them have some autonomy where they're not going to feel like you're being overzealous or micromanaging them to some extent. You know, obviously if they're doing something constantly wrong, it's a different issue, but you know, there's a point where, you know, you got to let some stuff slide. It's a better work environment, I guess you could say. I mean, it's just my take on it.
Yeah. So Duncan keeps bringing up something about stamps. Is there some
Well,
sort of inside joke that I don't know about?
Duncan's from Australia. Duncan has he's ahead of me in feedback. I think he's got 12,000 on eBay, but he does big time stamps. I only talk about stamps on Patreon. I'm not going to share. I love stamps. I've collected stamps since I was a small child, and when I was 7 or 8, my father gave them to me, his collection, and I've had this massive collection for a long time in my life. I do share some, and I've seen some of his, and I've shared some with him too. He's from Australia, and I've got a massive Australian collection of states and colonial areas. So we've talked back and forth, and I've looked at some of his stuff. Duncan's a real good guy. So I think Kathy's out there. There's 3 or 4 people from Australia online right now in our group. I do talk to folks from other countries. It's very interesting, and he's a pretty funny guy. In all honesty, at least it's not a spider today. Usually it's a spider comment. He was there for one of the spider conversations. So, and I'm not going to go into it today, so you'll have to dig back to figure out what I'm talking about. I know we've got a bunch of questions. I had somebody, if I'm going to holler for a question, and we'll let everybody answer this with their own opinions on it. Somebody was saying that they're slow, they're not selling anything, and they have 150 items up. And I'm not trying to call anybody out or anything. 150 items in my book is nothing for summer. If you're new to this, 150 items is nothing. It took us at least 5,000 listings or more to be a steady flow. And I know everybody doesn't have that, and maybe Chris or Dom don't have that much either. So it's not even necessary. It doesn't have to be the amount, so to speak. But if you don't have the right items, you're not, you know, up on getting high dollar items, and you don't have the ability, quantity is the only way to get around it. 150 is nothing in the scheme of things. We currently have almost 60,000 listings just on eBay on 3 stores. Without that quantity, you know, things would be different for us. So, you know, it's quantity. Let Chris is first on here. Why don't you address that same basic concept, that same question?
All right. So quantity 150. So, you know, if you don't have that much stuff, I would probably go back into your older listings, see what's not selling, see if your prices are competitive, see if your titles are correct. Make sure your descriptions are correct, because Google will kind of look at all this kind of stuff, not to mention eBay's own site. Definitely look at your photos, you know, refresh your listings. But if to get more money, it's obvious that you're going to have to go quantity.
My take on this is kind of go back and forth with a little bit. So now Don, we're very similar in terms of our, you know, profit margins and stuff, where I would say also I'm like at about 80% because we're both buying stuff in bulk and getting things for like peanuts. So for me, at one point last year, I was at this is gross, but 8,000 in gross in 60 days with only 120 something items up. That's because a lot of the items that I had up were like big seller collectible items, like, vintage Magic the Gathering card sets, some really, old comic books that were pretty valuable. So things that were selling for like, high dollar amounts, combined with some other, 30, 40, $50 collectibles that were selling, here and there that I could easily replace. So I've had times where I have more things listed and I'm, making less than what I was back then. So sometimes you could get caught up in putting up a lot of volume, and if you're not listing the right stuff, the key thing is you have to be listing the right stuff. That's the essential thing. You talk about this, Don. You have to put stuff up that people want. So if
it's not about quantity, so to speak. For
right,
us, I'm fine with quantity because I
right,
know everything I've got, I've looked up.
right,
But if you don't look it up, you can't just list and hope it's going to sell. You have to
right.
have good stuff. That's
Yeah,
the key.
exactly. That's the bottom line. So if you're if you're just trying to, I think this is something that happens to people, especially who are new, especially if you're following social media and you see this person says, I have 500 listings, or I have 600 listings, or I have 900 or 1,000. And then you start to feel maybe bad about yourself or in fear, like, wait a minute, I only have 200 listings or 300, but you could make more money with 200 listings compared to the person who has 500. If the person who has 500 has things that nobody wants and their photos stink and their listings just aren't good, and you have stuff that people really want that's highly desirable. So that's the key. Ideally, you want to be in Don's situation where you have a lot of stuff that people really want. That's the place that everyone strives to get to. And so I'm working on developing systems to try to continuously get there myself. And recently kind of got caught up with trying to get more things up to just try to get like a higher quantity of things. But for me on my schedule, that tends to be things that I could photograph quicker, don't require as much description. So they're items that generally aren't worth as much. They don't take as much prep time and stuff. So as a result, I'm putting up maybe 5 things that are 10, 15 bucks a piece versus taking the time to put up one thing that takes maybe a little bit more time to prepare, but maybe I put that item up for 200 bucks, collection of comics that took me a while to go through, bag and board, list, describe, but it's a $200 sale in one shot. So it's
there's several philosophies, so it's there's no one way that works for anybody, in my personal opinion. If I could find $400 items, I just sell a couple dozen of those, but I don't have the ability. I've learned that I've got the ability to find as many 10 to say $60 items as I want. I turn them down all the time. I turn down stuff that most people would snap up in a second because I don't need that much of that type of material anymore. I've just got so much. So we've drawn lines where I won't buy this because I can't flip it for so much. My bottom line is if it's worth $7.99, I'll list it these days, just because I've got listers and they can list, a minute or so with Sellbrite. You can have a listing done and you're done. That's it. So if they could do 25 or 30 listings in an hour, I'm fine. Even if they only do 15 or 20 at $8 a pop. And the other thing is when they're listing these, and Chris said this as well, if you list all the time, you're going to sell all the time. If you don't list every day, you're not going to sell that extra amount of stuff. If I list 100 items any day of the week, every single day of the week, I'm going to sell 3 to 5% of those 100 items. Every single time I do this. Again, I've looked up the items, so I know that the items are good. I know what to buy these days. I know which ones to turn down and all that kind of stuff. It takes time. None of us, Chris, Dom, or me, could just walk in there and say, hey, I'm going to buy all this stuff. I know what I'm doing. It's taken us time and effort and a lot of effort and a lot of time.
Yeah. Plus you'll have to call ahead to make sure Marky has room for it.
You got to do what you got to do, man. You know how that is. It's all about bulk, and I say that, and people, I get these doubters and stuff, but there's people out here, and I know, like Duncan, we were talking about. Duncan buys in bulk. He has people. There's companies that will source for you. If you didn't know that, there are sourcers. There are people, official businesses that will do this, and I knew that from working at Cracker Barrel, because Cracker Barrel has a warehouse that they supply all of their stores with, and they have sourcers. Other people have companies that do that. They'll source out signs and paper, and they'll frame them, and then they'll market them to restaurants, hotel chains, businesses. Hard Rock Cafe is a perfect example. everybody knows they all have all the collectibles on the wall. There's companies that supply those to these businesses. We deal with some of these businesses that do that, especially in the entertainment field. I've got connections with Disney since we worked at Disney for 10 years. So it's nothing to be able to make a couple phone calls and get a box to show up at the house. So it's all about contacts, buying in bulk, and getting people to do as much as you can. I love when I can find somebody to do most of the work for me, source it for me. I mean, that's why pickers have been my number one thing since I found somebody who would buy and call me. Ever since then, that's all I worried about when I first started doing this, is trying to get people to get it for you. That's the best. Cut out any waste of time you can get. So we got to the point where I don't have to source really this whole summer. I've only been to like 3 estate sales myself and 1 garage sale this entire summer season at all. That's it. And I'm not trying to brag. That's just the facts. That's just how it is for me nowadays.
Yeah, Don, I mean, technically, I would say I really don't have to source. I mean, I have enough stuff here that I don't have to. But and one weekend I did that. I took the weekend, or at least I started to try to do that on a Saturday when I got back from my trips, and it just kind of settling down. I was like, well, maybe I won't go out tomorrow, and then I just can't. Like, I have to go. I have to go.
He's addicted.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like
it's a disease.
Lion that's hungry, and you're just trying to keep him inside. Like, I gotta go out there and try to find stuff. So it's fun for me too, and it's also for me, it's like a part of my channel. That's one of the things people like about it, is that I take them out into the sales, and I'm filming me getting stuff, and they like that. And then if I take that away, that's a big part of my channel gone. So that's another reason too. But I genuinely love it. That's the main reason is that I'm doing it, is I love it.
Yeah, I haven't done many sourcing videos, just again because I'm not really sourcing that much.
Yeah.
I was going to go to a military show the other day, and then one of the vendors that I know called me the night before, so I just went to his house, and I just skipped out the whole show because there's only like 2 or 3 vendors I'd see anyway, and I didn't want to just go for the video sake of it. Military shows, the people there are a little touchy because obviously guns are sold there, and people have some negative remarks, and I didn't want to have any hard feelings with anybody else like that. So
yeah. I mean, even if I was a millionaire, I would probably still go into estate sales and garage sales and stuff too, for sure. It's like a hobby for me. Like, what's great about this business is it doesn't feel like a job. Like, I think the two of you guys can totally say that, where this job that we have, reselling and all that, is literally fun. It's like a treasure hunt constantly every day. And I think as long as you keep it as fun, and there's times where it's grueling, it's depressing sometimes, and it's crazy, and you want to pull your hair out. But I wake up every morning and I'm just thrilled to be like, what am I going to find today? And this is for myself, this is my calling for sure.
Yeah, the other thing, Chris, I think that besides the hunt that we all have in common is that we all love to learn. And you're learning every day when you're doing this. You're learning when you're watching other YouTubers. You're learning from bolos, and you're learning even from your own items that you get. And you have to research and figure things out about it. And if you love history, this is just a great area to go into, especially if you're dealing with vintage and collectibles. It's just so much fun to just like learn new stuff. And then you could take that knowledge and bring it to the next sale, and you could have a leg up on someone and say, aha, because I know that, because I have that knowledge, I could pick that out. Now I know the value. That kind of gets back to what Don was saying earlier, that you can't just walk in and all of a sudden know this. It takes time and experience. But if you like doing that, if you like learning, it's a fun thing.
Let me shoot out a question here. I've got Tess has a question. How much thought do you put into eBay descriptions? On eBay descriptions, the only important thing anymore these days is the actual title. The keywords are like the most essential. Photos is number 2 in my book. The description wise, I only worry about, like, if it's a card and it's not like a postcard or a piece of paper, the size and any issues, and that's all I worry about listing anymore. I've got the description box at the bottom is just pretty much generic. Up for sale is a vintage item or vintage piece of paper, and that describes every piece of paper I sell these days. Everything else is just in the condition box these days. I don't waste any time changing anything in my descriptions anymore, unless it's one word to say is an original vintage paper. I might change it to an original vintage book or original vintage photo. That's all I change. I don't do any of the item specific sections, any of that, unless it doesn't fit into the title. The keywords are the key thing. And I've had people at eBay tell me that those extra things, those extra boxes, like the item specific ones, are just there to fill in for extra space if you can't fit in the title. And I've always done it. I never worry about any of those. As quick as you can get them up, the photo, the title, and conditions, a simple condition statement. Item does show wear from age, and that's what I use all the time. Never had an issue, never had a complaint. I don't get them.
I think the item specifics are going to be mostly for people that are selling clothes, because someone that's on the left could easily search for extra large or blue shirt or whatever.
Exactly.
But, you know, and I had the same thing at the eBay upfront event. The eBay people were saying that, you know, even the item specifics doesn't really hold much weight as far as people searching for something. It's the after the fact, when you search for that original shirt, you can go over there to the left and be like, okay, size XL or whatever. So, yeah.
And the other thing on that too, that a lot of people think, if I'm selling a postcard, you do not have to put postcard in the title. If you go to search for that postcard and they don't have the word postcard in the title, and you put in a Toledo postcard, it's going to show up anyway, because the category itself ties postcard to the search results. So you don't need that word. So I put it in there to take up space. I try to always fill them, unless I'm trying. There's two philosophies. One is to fill the title description up all the way to cause a little attention. Other times are to put as little information as you can into the title, so people will want to click into the listing. And it's just like window shopping. You want to get them in there, and sometimes we sell them even though that's not what they're looking for, because there wasn't enough information for them to decide on what the item was based on the title and the photo zoom in. So that's helped us, in my opinion. It does actually help. I don't know if you guys do that, but I've done that for a long time.
I agree. Obviously, the title is very important. I do see a lot of people, I don't think use it as a strategy, but they will just leave out keywords that are real important that could have brought more people into their listing. So I try to use as many keywords as possible. I've heard you talk about this before, Don. It's very true that you don't have to write a perfect grammatical sentence in your title. It doesn't matter.
Just words. It doesn't, nothing. I put in like pit bull, card, blue. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to.
Exactly.
They're search words. All they're doing is trying to get somebody in there. Don't worry about what it says. Worry about the words you are putting into it.
Right. And also another mistake I see people make who are new is they'll put the same word in the title twice. And you don't need to do that. It's already covered. So it's going to come up when someone does a search for different combinations of words. You just have to have it in there at one time. So I try to do that. I try to make that first photograph be one that's the real, you know, like you said, kind of like window shopping, that's going to bring somebody in and really entice them. I do a lot of my comic books. I talk about that in a lot of my videos, that I do a nice overhead shot of all the books, so it just brings them in. And the ones that I show the full covers from the front, if there's a lot of them, like 40, 50 books, I make sure they're the most valuable ones. You know, the oldest ones are right on the bottom with the full covers. Then they'll go in and explore it more.
Can I make a suggestion? I find when I do have those lots that I do better if I don't list and don't show what's in the lot, because then they have to look at the listing to see what's there. I do see that I do have a higher percentage of sales on the ones that don't have the information in the title. That's more along the lines of when I play the game of title. I limit the information in the title and the images. So like, let's say I've got a lot of 10 comics. My main photo is just going to be a close-up on like if they're Iron Man comics. My main photo is going to be Iron Man action scene of him doing something really cool on the cover, or shooting a ray at you or something. And they're going to have to look in it. And I personally have seen this. I've tested it. I've done all the you know, side-by-side comparisons. I personally feel and see enough results difference that if you limit the information on the very first image, it does help you out, because again, it's the same like window shopping. If they know everything that's in a listing or in the lot, they may not bid as much, or it may not be specific. At least that's what I've personally come. Again, you may not find the same results, but I've done that for a very long time. I preach it, because if I'm selling a Time magazine from World War II, if I just put World War II Time magazine, excellent condition, it's going to get a ton of views, and it will probably sell extremely quick as long as there's anything good on it. Now, if I just put Time magazine issue 76 with Tito on the cover, something like that, it may not sell as quickly, believe it or not, because it's too specific. The person's only going to be looking for that specific issue the way I type it. But if I put it as a war issue, and that's it. Everybody looks at it and it does sell quicker. That's the concept I guess I'm preaching here.
Dude, who's
Yeah.
Tito? Who's Tito?
Prime Minister or Emperor of Japan.
Oh, there you go. He's dropping the knowledge on me. Hey, Dom, if you start selling a bunch of comics, like if you start to get to a point where you sell a bunch of them, there's this thing that John from Popeye's postcards uses. It's called the Caesar, and it's like a book photograph thing, and it's really amazing. And I'll send you a link to it after the show. So maybe it might be something down the road. It's a quite an investment. It's like $300 or $400, but it's an overhead camera that's libraries use to take photos of books.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
But
yeah, I'm gonna need that one day. You know why I'm gonna need that one day? Because the primetime treasure hunter is gonna die one day, standing on top of this this chair, and I have this stupid chandelier upstairs that I've got to hold like this, and I've got the camera like this. And every time I do it, my wife's like, "You're gonna fall off that chair one day. You're gonna fall off that chair." So right now I feel okay, but as I get older and less stable, I'm gonna have to probably think of something like that.
I actually got a pro tip for everyone. We're talking about titles. If you put VTG, it'll save you like 4 characters instead of putting vintage. Just put VTG. It'll save you some characters.
That's true. Another thing that I do, it's kind of along the lines of what Don was talking about, and I know this works as a buyer on eBay, but this is me doing this as the seller, knowing how the buyer thinks, is if I have, and it doesn't have to be comic books, but it could be something else that you might describe as in mint condition or excellent condition or very fine or something like that. If I have books that are like that or items that are like that, I will say that in the title. But if it's not, if there's condition issues associated, I specifically don't say that in the title, because then the person does have to go down and look and inspect and to see. And I remember that as a buyer, when I would go and look for comic books, if it didn't say it was very fine and near mint, I don't know if maybe it is and the person left it out, or maybe it's not, and then I have to go in and explore and look. But at least it brings the person in, because there are some buyers that will just see it says, oh, it has wear, or oh, it has condition issues, or it's in fine condition or very good, which are terms in the comic book industry that mean there's problems with the books, and then they just won't even bother looking. They'll go right by your entry. So this at least is a way that you could bring them in. So
since you're touching on titles, and that is one of the questions here, no-nos in my book are the word scarce and rare, and the word huge lot when there's only 50 books in a lot. A huge lot to me is thousands, or at least a couple hundred. I was looking at something, trying to price something earlier, and some of the comps were huge lot, 10 comic books, one graded one. A huge lot is not 10. You're not cheating. You're not doing anything for your sales by putting huge lot if it's not. You're not doing anything by putting scarce or the word rare in anything. Most things are not. A rare item is something that there may be 10 or 12 of in the country at any given time for sale. That's rare. A scarce item is 100 or just a hair over 100. Those are scarce and those are rare. A rare record is not an Elvis Presley singing Blue Hawaii on a 45 that they made 10 million of. That is not rare, and I see people doing that all the time. Nobody is searching for the word rare for anything, for the most part. No one's using scarce as a search term or as a lookup term. They're just wasted terms, and they're overused. Those are the 2 most overused words on there, as well as the third one would be huge lot, which drives me nuts when I see that, just as scarce does, because somebody says scarce and I may have 10 of them in my house right now of what they're saying is scarce, and it's just not scarce, most of what everybody says, and it's not going to improve your sales doing those words at all. I promise you. No one's searching for scarce comic book. They're searching for Spider-Man #1 or Amazing Fantasy 15 or Avengers 1. They're not searching for scarce Avengers. They're not doing that. That's not what anybody's doing. I don't know what your guys' take on it, but those are those.
I promise you, dude, I'm not just saying this. I have literally, I haven't done this in a long time, mind you, but back in the day, I actually used to search for things that were rare. I used to type it in. Now, granted, knowing what I know now, I know there are people that are listing things as rare that aren't rare, but I actually did use it as a search term, and I'm actually curious. I wish there was a way to figure out how many people actually typing that in. Now, I will use it sometimes, but I'm mindful of what you're saying, Don. I never use the word scarce. I will use it only if, now I don't have a count of how many exactly there are in the country, but if I can't find that it's been listed on either Terapeak in the last year. It's not listed currently, or it hasn't been listed obviously in the last 60 days on eBay. Like, let me give you an example. Like that, you know what it is, Don. I showed it to you. It was that little card that I got. It was the admission card to get into Luna Park in Coney Island. As far as I know, that might be literally like the only one of those that exists. And I'm pretty sure I said rare in the listing on that, but that genuinely was a rare item.
That would generally be rare. I actually have a Coney Island. It's not yours, unfortunately. It's a little newer. It's from the 40s, but Coney Island tickets would be rare. A paper ticket that was meant to be thrown away. Well, I don't know rare, but it's definitely 100% scarce. The word I do use though is Holy Grail, if it's a Holy Grail item. Like a Northern Soul record that's worth $1,000 is Holy Grail. Or a book that's worth $1,000 is a Holy Grail. I had a trade card the other day. We got 1,100 for it. That's a Holy Grail. It's a steamship company from California. They don't show up. There's like maybe 20 sales in the last 20 years of any cards like this. That's the Holy Grail. I try not to use, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but I don't use it personally, like rare and scarce. If I put anything in there, it's Holy Grail. If you're selling records, the term to use is Holy Grail, and people know what Holy Grail is. They'll more look for the word Holy Grail at a search result than they would ever look for rare or scarce. At least the ones that I know that would want to buy my records. Most of like a 45 Holy Grail is going to be something that's going to England, Belgium, Germany, France, or Japan. They're not going to sell over here. And the Holy Grail is the term that's used for pretty much any record that's worth any. Robert Johnson. If it's a Robert Johnson 78, it's going to be Holy Grail. I don't care what one it is. They're all Holy Grails. That's just a take on that.
Yeah, I mean, like Chris, you probably know for wrestling figures. I mean, I showed this the other day. The Holy Grail WWF or yeah, I guess it is WWF wrestling figure is the Greg the Hammer Valentine one from when he's on Rhythm and Blues.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the black hair.
Is that the one that goes for like 1,000?
Or more, actually. It was sold for like 15 grand.
Didn't he have a coat or a jacket or something that's
yeah, but it was the hair color that was the difference in him, and the boots too, but the hair color was the main thing. They had the black hair.
It's like the Wonder Man. It's like the Wonder Bread He-Man. They said that didn't exist, and now they know it exists, and that is rare. Even though they made hundreds of those, there aren't many that people sent away for, and the ones that are, they're all scratched up and scuffed. An excellent, like a C9 or something of that specific figure goes for a shit ton of money. You know, if you've seen them on eBay, you know what they go for, and if they're sealed in the plastic, that is the Holy Grail of that type of figure.
Yep. I have never, Chris, have you ever used the term Holy Grail in one of your listings? I never used it.
No. I don't know. I think there's only like one Holy Grail out there, right? And it hasn't even been found. Like, isn't it Indiana Jones?
Now we're going to Indiana Jones now.
Yeah, no, I've never used Holy Grail. What happened? Did something happen here? Could you hear me?
On our end, I can hear you, Chris.
Okay, I think Dominic
he froze.
Blacked out. He must have had the same thing that happened to me. I don't use rare or huge or anything. I will put lot. Here's one pro tip that I do. Instead of I put lot, and if I have room, he's doubled. I put collection also, because it's a lot. It's a collection. Some people search for collection.
That's a legit thing. Those are both good. I put lot and collection. Chris is 100% right. Collection works too, because people want to buy one lump sum and have everything for the set.
Am I back on now?
Two of you are. You've got twins now.
Yeah, I fell off my chair, so.
Did you?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that would have been great.
We didn't catch it though, so you know.
Yeah, no, I'm back on.
Now we've got two different images of you now.
Yeah, I know, that's weird. I don't know why that is.
So what happens is when you jump back on, that's why you got to kind of hang up, and then you do the link again, and then you'll be just one. But
yeah. Well, you know what happened? My browser just crashed. Like, I don't know what happened.
Hey, you know, on Hangouts, Dom, I can see now it's fixed. It had one picture of you, but if you go to actually on YouTube, it's got a different picture of you on it.
Yeah, there's all these different pictures of me floating around. I don't know. I think maybe I have a twin or something.
Yeah, you must. They're on the feed right now.
It's the Primetime Treasure Hustler instead of Hunter.
There you go.
It's that Dominique guy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pick. It's Dom. I'm never gonna say. Try never say Dominic. It's gonna be Dom all the time.
Yeah, because you got to put a quarter in the jar if you do.
Someone asked if that's my high school photo. That's pretty funny.
You didn't see. Did you look at the photo that was up?
Yeah, I know what it is. That one comes from like probably about 20 years ago, that photo. So yeah, I don't know how that got on there.
Yeah, I shared in Patreon a picture of when I met my wife, one of our Disney photos, and I got a couple weird comments on that. I don't mind showing some of the old ones, but it's weird to look at yourself back then and think about where the time has all went at my age anyway, you know. It's I'm 50, you know, and it's just hard to say. It's like a blink of an eye, and my kids are already, you know, one's in his third year of college and the other one's going to be in college in another year. So time flies, and I mean fly since you had kids. I think everybody who has kids can say that. Nothing wrong if you don't have kids, but you know, that's
Hey,
changed.
Annie just dropped some cool information in the chat. She went and did a little Terapeak research while we're on here. She said, according to Terapeak, the sell-through rate of items with the word rare in the title is about 14% for the past month, with the average price of about 50 bucks. It's pretty funny. I don't know. I don't know what that. I don't know what to make of that. But
I think
Holy
14%
Grail she's got is 35% sell through with an average of $333. So Holy Grail is obviously the better term
Yeah.
based on sales sell through rate and the actual average price on that. Holy Grail is literally anybody who's in records. Holy Grail is what they will use. If they know records, it's going to be Holy Grail. And same with some other items too that we sell, like military, like a Holy Grail sword or something like that.
Can we back up just for a second for the new sellers that might be here that have no idea we're talking about Holy Grail, what that even means?
Shoot it out, Chris.
Oh, okay. It's basically like the rarest thing of a certain subject. So like it's one of the rarest Star Wars figures that you can find, or one of the rarest wrestling figures that you can find. It's basically literally like the Holy Grail because it's so hard to find in that particular niche. So that's where that term comes from.
Right.
Yeah, that's the term I literally use. I would have never thought to look on Terapeak for that. I mean, I've just done it so long and see the result difference versus rare and scarce. And, you know, back in the day when eBay first started, rare and scarce could have been used a lot because to most people, most of what was up was rare and scarce. They just didn't see it. But eBay has done one thing. It's turned those two terms into not meaning very much because, again, when eBay started 20 plus years ago, rare and scarce, everybody, yeah, because you had to go to a specific store and hope you could find anything. There was no centralized source. You know, we did Yahoo auctions way back in the day and been on there. You just didn't have the option to buy any of this stuff. There was nowhere to get it. So they've killed those terms to some extent because everybody realized that they're not rare, they're not scarce. There's more of them if you were able to access the whole planet at once through the internet. What's Chris laughing at over there?
I don't know. I think someone came in probably asking for his job because Chris is, for those who don't know, he's at his workplace there at the American Cancer Society. So sometimes he gets interrupted here and there. So
hopefully he didn't get fired from this.
Yeah.
Get out, Chris. Go on.
Him right now. Right on your channel. Here we go. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, that would be kind of embarrassing. Don and Dom got Chris fired on the job today. Yeah, that wouldn't go over very well. We got like 150 plus people watching. If you haven't hit that like button, why don't you hit the like button for us? Hopefully you're enjoying the conversation. We're giving you some honest, helpful information, I hope. There's a question actually down here. John Nevermore, how you doing, John? Terapeak is good for pricing on that. We've played with it, but I've never thought to look up terms like that. So thanks, Annie. Annie has been a plus to this channel for a very long time. She's actually my first admin ever. You don't know who Annie is or haven't paid attention, she's very, very, very knowledgeable. So she probably knows more about Terapeak than I do. We do use it, obviously, for some things, but, you know, most of the time for pricing-wise, I use, you know, my own personal knowledge, eBay, or like PopPsych. Most of the paper I'm able to price myself, at least. I don't know about Dom. I'm sure you've got, you know, built-in memory for most of what comics are worth, or at least the ones you see constantly, like First Gap, a Punisher or something. You know what that sells for.
Yeah, and you got a general sense of it, you know, and you know the stuff that you've seen 10 million times that isn't worth anything.
Yep. That's why somebody says, well, how do you know not to buy that? Or you go through so quick. I'm like, because I've seen it like 20 times. I'm not like buying postcards, Los Angeles postcards. Don't mess with them. There's so few Los Angeles cards or big city cards that are worth something because they made so many of them that I know not to look for them unless it's like some weird image. You've seen, you know, Hotel Hilton in downtown Los Angeles like 50 times. It's not worth but $1 if you're lucky. So
yeah.
You all right there, Chris?
Yeah, no, I got excited because the manager brought in this book, and I thought it was an old photo album from like the 18 somethings or something. But it's just I got excited, but it's just actually an art book that I have to do some research. What's really cool about the job is they'll bring in some stuff that they think might be worth something, and just working out of a thrift store is like a crazy experience that most people don't get the luxury of kind of seeing the insides outs of a thrift store.
That book looks like an 1893 Chicago World's Fair book. May
Yeah,
not be, but it sure
it
looks
says
like.
art and artists of all the Patreons. So I'll have to look at it later. I got excited because I thought it was an old photo book at first, but when I opened it up, it's just a regular book.
That still looks pretty interesting. I'd have to dig into that too as well. It's got to be a 19th century book by the looks of it, I would say.
Yeah, actually, I can tell you right now. I'll just take a look if you guys want to have a chat about
Yeah,
something
I'm
else.
interesting now. Looks like they've got a nice plastic cover on the top.
I'll give you a year. 1899 is the year.
Oh, a little later than I would have thought.
Yeah. So we'll see. We don't get too many rare books in though. We got a $400 book that came in the other day that I actually found in a recycle bin, and I talked about it before. You know, there's still a lot of money in some books that don't have barcodes on them. They have the ISBN number, I think they're called, and you know, it was a kind of like a spiritual woo-woo book about Saturn, the gods of Saturn, or something weird like that. And you know, there's still those books out there. You know, and it was just kind of crazy. You know, we get into books like all the time here.
Yeah, I like books, and I used to scan, but we don't scan much anymore these days. It's just a madhouse. I like the books without barcodes. If I'm at an estate sale, the bookshelf makes us the most money usually, unless there's some paper items there. But usually the bookshelf they underprice in almost every estate sale I've ever been to. That's usually the last thing they price, and they just throw up all hardbounds $1 or $2. They'll pull out the few that had nice dust jackets that they may have recognized the title or something, but books are the bomb, at least vintage non-barcoded books, I think personally.
Well, here, I was gonna
Shoot.
say, here's another pro tip, and I apologize for interrupting. You know, look inside these old books because you never know what you can find. I found an old World War II banner last year that was inside of a airplane book or something that went for like $200. And you know, I'm sure people have found money in books. I found money in books when I was younger. I haven't found money in books in a long time. I swear someone is gonna find a rare baseball card in an old book one day. And
Well, hey, Chris, related to that, and Don, even if you don't buy, I know, Don, you don't do a lot with clothes, you do some like jackets and stuff, but if you're at estate sales, I'm telling you, go through the pockets in the closet. You won't believe how much money you will sometimes find or other valuables inside the coat pockets or the pants pockets in the closets.
Could I tell you a story about how $15,000 of cash was found at a shop maybe a couple years ago? This is out of one of our shops. And basically, someone donated like literally a truckload of dolls, right? Old dolls. And for those that don't know, the porcelain dolls that come in these kind of long shoe boxes and stuff like that. So they're going through the dolls, and they ended up finding like some of the boxes once they started getting into it had like $20 bills, like just like in stacks and everything. So someone donated a bunch of cash, but they ended up giving it back to the person that donated it. It was on the news and everything, but that stuff's out there, and you're totally true. I've heard stories of people finding thousands of dollars in shoes and things like that.
Yeah. Also, it pays to look in the back of art frames, picture frames.
Oh yeah, every frame. I take
Yeah.
everything out. I open up every single frame because I found maybe 1 in 10 times there's another picture or something behind those.
Another thing, if you go to estate sales, look behind the curtain rods. Right up top there, that's where people used to hide things behind there too. So you could look behind there, and they sometimes sneak some things in there behind the curtains.
Yeah, and just we're talking about things here. Another thing is if you're in a garage sale or at a garage, who cares if it's for sale in the table section? If there's something sitting on a shelf that has some value in it, I always offer them something for it, no matter where I'm at. We talked about coffee cans. Dom does the same thing. I'm sure Chris, if he sees a good one, is going to buy it. That's one of the #1 things I've usually found in a garage is our coffee cans used to hold nuts and bolts, where the coffee can's worth 50 or 60 bucks. And, you know, I offer them 10 bucks for it, and then it's yours, sold. I don't even have to quibble most of the time, or 5 bucks. It's just a piece of junk that their grandfather stored rusty nuts and bolts. And it's just another example. If it's on the wall, I'll offer them for it. If there's a doorknob in their house, I'll ask to buy the doorknobs off the house. The doorknobs sell like mad, especially like Eastlake or something. Anything in the house, if it's a estate sale, is game to make an offer on. Even if it doesn't say it's for sale, I'll offer them on anything I think I can make money on. And if they didn't price it or didn't think to put it as a sale item, they probably don't think it's worth much anyway.
Yeah, another thing I like to do, I showed this recently for anyone who watched my most recent haul video when I was going to one of the estate sales. And I've shown it in other ones too, but I love taking a little screwdriver with me, a little flathead, sometimes a new Phillips head, and just pop off those light switch covers, man.
I laughed when I saw that video.
They are awesome, man. People don't realize you could do that. And they're always like, even if I go to the end of a sale, they're always sitting there. I just go through all the rooms, go right in the corners, I pop them off. And they sell. I sell them for like 20, 30, 40 bucks a light switch cover, depending on what's on it.
We sell them too. I sold a Casper that was all worn. Casper the Friendly Ghost from the 60s. We got like 60 bucks for it. Yeah. And I paid a quarter for it.
Yeah.
Eastlake, any of the brass ones. There's colonial ones from 1976 that have an eagle on the top with a banner on. They're all brass. I've been to a house and got everyone off the house at the end of the sale. They let us buy anything else hardware-wise because the house is going up to auction and they could care less what happened to the stuff. It was more money in their pocket. So all that stuff, he's 100% right. Sometimes I'll buy like you have to look for these. Sometimes like you'll see a sale or you'll see stuff sitting outside at a remodeling or home construction site, like the I can't think what the Pella window stuff. All those extra little packets of stuff that they didn't use when the house is done. We've got deals with a couple of companies that when they're done, we buy them off of them because they can't return them and they would have to sell them. So I give them half of what they go for and I buy them in big, huge bulk. Even the little screw packets, all that stuff's like 20 bucks a pop. And I get them for, almost nothing most of the time. So all of that stuff sells. And that's a good thing to look for. Our construction sites, the leftover pieces for those windows. Pella stuff sells like mad. The hooks, the clasps, the locks, any of that stuff sells incredibly well. You'd be surprised, like the handle that you pull or the little switch that you lock a window with. There's 2 of them on every window. Those are like 20 bucks a piece. I was shocked the first time we sold some of those.
Yeah, I actually got other couple of huge tips for estate sales. In the bathrooms, look for perfume, look for old razors. In the garage, look for old spray paint. There's some actually stuff that you've said, looking in the coffee jars in the garage. I've heard of people finding crazy Native American jewelry like in garages that, in these little coffee cans in the bottom where they didn't even think anything was in. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I check everything. And the bookshelf, I say, is the number one, at least for me. I always gravitate to the bookshelves. Most people don't mess with it. I would rather, sit there and not have to fight, to be first in line, go a little later and, buy, 20, 30 books worth 40 or 50 bucks a pop or 10 bucks a pop. It's hundreds of dollars. And it's usually something you can get for almost nothing. I've bought out the entire bookcase before at places. So.
You actually brought up a good point where I've been to a couple of estate sales where I was maybe like 20th in line. And all the people are in the front, they just run through the house and they're leaving like things that are worth $100 just right there in the open on the table. It's crazy.
I have a video where I show this. It's hilarious. I actually go back. All these people are standing there, right? And they just it's like Walmart, right? Like they open the doors on like, Black Friday and they all just rush in. And they're all rushing to nothing because this house was totally destroyed. It was just totally just filthy, disgusting. It's actually the one. It's called the House of Horrors. If you want to look at this video on my channel, look up the one that says a House of Horrors, and you'll see when I walk in, I just take my time and I look straight up, right by the door, straight up, and there's basically like a couple of cabinets. I open them up, and there's all these old rare books, and I wound up selling some of those books for $100, $150 each. They were all old automotive books and old catalogs of machinery parts.
Oh, those do awesome.
And because of where they were situated and protected from all the other filth, like there was like rat poop in this house. I mean, it was absolutely disgusting. It was so much filth. It was because people were running out of the house. That's how gross it was. But because I just, looked straight up in that corner and didn't just, run where everyone else was, you got to try to avoid the group think in these situations. That's how you could find some of the stuff that's, right there in front of you that you could just walk by.
Well, we're running up to the 2-hour point. I don't know how much time everybody has, but maybe we could head towards like a last thought or something here. I don't know how much time you guys got. If you got a few more minutes, we can run a little longer. We didn't
Yeah,
discuss
I already got fired, so we can go.
You just thought you got fired. I thought maybe you got fired because of that mannequin that's behind you there.
Oh yeah, that one. The half of no, we can go for a few more minutes if you guys want to.
Or you want to cut it off at 9 today?
Yeah, we can do that.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe we can hit some questions then. Maybe if when you guys want us to pull out a question, we can each get a question out here from somebody watching today.
Sure.
Go for it.
Hang on just a second.
Already.
Let's see if we can pop the first one here.
Oh, I got an interesting kind of weird thing. You guys ready for this?
Shoot.
So this came in. It's a Toomey. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this brand before, but Toomey is like a very expensive, high-end, like kind of business brand. But the name inside there was business cards. It was actually the lawyer for the Menendez brothers owned this. And his business cards are in here. And this guy ended up actually committing suicide a few years after that whole thing because he had a rare form of cancer and ended up shooting himself. But it's just crazy, like some of the stuff that that comes into thrift shops, man.
That's amazing. And that's why you got to look stuff like that up. You know, you'll be like, wait a minute, you know, let me just check to make sure, like, even if you never heard of him before, who is this person? Was this person anyone famous before you throw that card out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually have a video just on business cards. We've sold some for hundreds of dollars. I mean, hundreds. We sold, I think $750 is the most we got for an official, what you would call a business card. Business cards sell well, like a Steve Jobs business card. And I know somebody who got one, and there's a YouTube channel or another channel out here that the guy got one on. So they do show up, obviously, in Chris's area of the woods, so you'd find a better chance in finding that. But any piece of paper, vintage or otherwise, I look up, at least if I don't know it. You know, you're going to have to look up everything you find when you first start if you're not knowledgeable in the area. But there's so much stuff that most people think is junk. And most of what I sell, most people think is junk. That's where we make most of our money. You know, this little tiny pieces of paper or any of that kind of stuff. You know, you sold, that's the ticket, the Coney Island ticket, like Don was talking about.
That was cool. That's a cool find.
It's oddball stuff like that that can make you more money than, you know, sourcing for a couple days with clothing, in all honesty. And again, I did clothing, and there's nothing wrong with clothing. I just don't like clothing. It's just not my cup of tea.
Well,
yeah. Have you guys ever sold business cards?
Well, Don has.
Yeah, I have. I've got probably 300-400 going back to like 1870s right now. In fact, the wife was listing, and we just sold one today for $95 out of it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've seen Walt Disney business cards go for like crazy amounts of money. But yeah, there's a market in that kind of stuff. What is it called? It's the E word for paper. What is it called?
Inferium.
Inferior, or what is it?
Inferium.
Yeah, that's like the basic
ephemera.
Ephemera.
It depends on who you're talking to. Inferium, I call it. And ephemera and inferium or epherium are basically the same thing.
What is the definition of that? Does this just mean paper items or
collectible paper? I guess I'm paper guy. I don't worry about terminology or, you know what I mean. It's all paper. And we didn't pick paper to sell. It just is what happens. So, you know, I don't think most people decide on anything specific. It ends up being what you can find, and you know, there's no rhyme or reason to what somebody sells. I think everybody out here has seen people that sell all kinds of crazy things. There's Mike, he's on here too. He's a patron. He talks about, there's a guy that just sells matchbooks, and he's got 100,000 matchbooks up on eBay for just a couple dollars, up to, you know, a couple hundred a piece. God knows what he sells. There's another guy that has like 100,000 magazines on eBay and sells, you know, tons of them. You know, anything can get you a living. You just gotta fall into the market. I didn't look to sell, you know, 4,000 postcards or 10,000 cards, or I didn't look for any of this. You know, this is just what happened. I know Dom's a little different because he's big into comics, so it's a little different aspect on it. I didn't pick anything specifically. I don't know, Chris, you do all kinds of stuff, so you're more like me in at least that aspect. And I know Dom does all kinds of stuff, but it seems like your biggest assortment for Dom is comic books. Me, I guess it's paper and trade cards and postcards, I guess.
Yeah, ephemera sounds like some like weird rash that you get or something that like doesn't want to go away. It just sounds like some medical term. Or even the stamps. What is it called? Like phila something?
Philatelic.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a
another
philatelic convention. I've been to a bunch of those actually.
that's another term that's just like stamps, philatelic, like this. That don't make sense.
Well, that covers a whole area though too. You've got, it covers philatelic covers the covers themselves, sheets, unused stamps, Cinderella's fantasy, back of books, and then you got topical and all the other areas. Stamps is a huge, and back to Duncan, we were talking about. You buy a stamp book, a real good album, you invest 500, $1,000 into it. There may be 10,000 stamps in that book that only take up, a tiny, tiny little space, and you can list those for months out of that same book if you're spending and you know your area. So I mean, again, it depends on what you know and what you fall into, I guess.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, I see Scott's on. I see Bearded Picker came on tonight. Sorry, folks, today I haven't been up on the feed. I've been kind of wrapped up in the conversation.
Yeah, that's all right. It's hard to kind of go back and forth, but everyone's been having some good conversations in there, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably everybody's off by the time I'm sending them a notice. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm usually a little better than this. And I had some questions, and now there's so much in the feed. My feed keeps hopping over. Every time I go to the question and go to click on it, it's gone. You guys still there?
Yeah,
we're here. I'm here. We just had some dead air there.
Yeah, I'm just making sure because this thing keeps popping around on my end here.
I know we're good. I'm just glad that it all worked tonight because we've all had the issues with the Google Hangouts.
That was a bad stretch.
Yeah, I tested it this morning, and then I tested it like an hour before we went live, and we actually were all on like 20 or 30 minutes ahead of time so we could verify it. Last time we couldn't get it to the go live button to even show up, so it's been one of those things. What, you had 3 different times, Dom, that you couldn't get on?
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. I had 2, so that's not terrible compared to 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And Chris, you had a couple too, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I had a couple of issues with before. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get some times too as well on maybe the next show, and we'll rotate through the channels. We'll give you some updates. We'll post them out through obviously all of our channels here. Still, if you're on and you haven't hit that thumbs up, please hit the thumbs up here. We still got, looks like 167 people on right this moment. So, we only have 85 likes. Another couple things here. If you haven't subscribed to Chris's channel, Thrift Shop Hustler, I have it in the description here. If you haven't subscribed to Dom's channel as well, yeah, darn well better do that as well. His link is down there as well. You can also click on them on the actual chat, the 3 little dots. And I'm going to post this in here one more time. And we will add everybody's direct link in here one more time. They're throughout the chat, so if anybody has anything else or needs anything. If you got any questions too, I think we can open up some questions. Just pop them down on there and we will hit them up for you.
Yeah, so Zach has a question. He says, I had to accept a return forced on me by eBay. The seller returned the item very damaged and almost unsellable, and eBay didn't want to reimburse me for the loss. Is this normal?
You don't have to give a full refund if they've damaged it. You can actually give half of what they are due, and they will not. They're 2 separate deals. If you give a partial refund for that, it closes the return case, and you don't have anything else to worry about the return case. Now, if they're not happy with that, they will have to open up another case, which will not affect you as the actual seller. So I would give them, as little of a refund as I can. It will close the return. They can't leave feedback against you at all if they've opened up the return, and let eBay deal with it. Chances are eBay will either give them the money or they won't give them the money. Either way, it's not going to come from your end. That's part of it. That depends on how your return policy is set up too, though. If you do free returns, that's exactly how it works for free returns. Second they open up the return, they can't do anything to you, and you don't have to give them all their money back.
Yeah, Don, I have a video on this, and I'm going to do another one because I literally just went through this yesterday. I could actually show you what I'm talking about. Is actually, we talk about ways to source, which kind of fits in with this video. And I've talked to you before that I like metal detecting. And
I metal detect too. I've got it to Sorrel right now.
Yep. Well, one of the items that I found at Long Branch Park here in central New York is this right here. This is a vintage light covering for a gas lamp, and so it hung right like this. I dug it out of the hill. Everyone from the park came by. They were fascinated by what the heck this was that I pulled out of there. Had it appraised. It still has some of the original hand painted flowers and stuff on there. It's a really cool piece. again from the 1930s, and it was appraised at approximately $100. And I had held on to it for years. And I actually did a video talking about it and polled people about whether or not I should try to sell it or not, because I had gotten, what I needed to out of it, displayed it, talked about it a lot. And I always wanted to sell one of my metal detecting finds. So long story short, people said, yeah, you should sell it. I held on to it still for a couple more months, but then I said, I'm going to keep to my word and sell it. My wife didn't want me to sell it. My kids didn't want me to sell it, but I wanted to sell it, so I sold it. Guy buys it. I put all, detailed pictures in there. He gets it. He says he's not satisfied with it. He doesn't like the condition and he wants to send it back. And he puts an item not as described. And I'm like, this was, I even said in my listing, like, this was something that I dug out of a hill that was in the ground for almost like 100 years. So it's in very good condition for the age. I mean, you could see, it's really a beautiful piece. So he's telling me like, oh, there's parts of the rim that aren't the way I want it and all this kind of stuff. So he opens up a return, sends it back to me, tosses it in the box. And I have the box right here, actually. Here's, I did have it. Oh, here it is. So I get it back with a gaping hole in the side of it like this. See that? Okay. He just tossed like a layer of bubble wrap around it. And he left all this void space. And then what I notice is that, and it's funny because the pictures he sent into eBay about my item, this was attached to it. Well, because of how he sent it, this little piece snapped off. So now I have my item back and it has the piece off. I mean, I could still display it and stuff, but still, you have to, it's part of eBay's policy. As the buyer, you have to send the item back in the condition that it was received. And so you can't do what this guy did, just throw it in a box and just expect that, because he's like mad, it's not the way he wants. So he just throws it in there. Well, what I did is I sold it for $80. And remember, I have nothing into it, because I metal detected it, just time. So I refunded 40 because that's 50%. And that was yesterday. I haven't heard anything back. So I feel like, well, now I have the item. I still made a little bit on it, and that's the end of that. But, you don't have to just sit there and accept it. That's the main point. If that guy calls eBay and complains, maybe eBay handles it by giving him a voucher for $40 or something. Like, they have their own customer service things they're going to do. But, Don's right. I don't have to worry about negative feedback, and I don't have to worry about, losing out on it because
you do free returns, correct?
Yes, you have to do free returns.
That's the best bet was free returns, in my personal opinion, because the minute they open up that return, there's nothing they can do to you. Feedback, there's no feedback or anything. Or if you don't have free returns and the person says, you give me the money back or else, or I'm going to leave you feedback extortion, and then you're safe as well too. I always try to get them to open up the return. If they don't open up the return and they try and send the item back, I don't accept it. It has to have my number, and eBay has stood by me when that's happened. It's happened once before where they avoided the return and sent it back, and I refused the delivery on it. I say I get too many boxes. There's no way I'd know without them doing their case. eBay did side with me. And again, those are, like Dom's saying, those are two different cases. If they return it, you only give them part of their money. The case is done the minute you gave them a dime back. If you give them a dime refund, your case is closed. The return's done. Any other case will not show up on your end. eBay deals with those. So if they've screwed you on the item, or like in Dom's case, he could just send a picture of that to eBay, and I don't think he'd ever hear another word about that from eBay, no matter what. You can block the guy. He can't buy from you again. The whole works. So
eBay would be like, why would anyone want that crap?
It's a cool piece, man.
It's pretty cool.
I don't know. To me, it looks like junk, but one man's junk is another man's treasure. That's our business, right?
I metal detect, so I've sold worse junk looking than that, for some good money. A broken button from the Civil War that's all smashed, for 100 and some odd bucks because it's a Confederate one or something. It doesn't matter what stuff looks like in certain areas, anyway.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know. We had another question I wanted to get to, but go ahead. Did you want to follow?
No, you can shoot it off. Let's get some questions.
Okay, so Rich Sanders asks if anyone has any advice on how to find the best keywords. Now, for me, the thing that I do, and it's probably the quickest, is I just go to completed auctions and see what kind of things people use for their thing. I'm sure there's a site that you can go to, but for me, I'm lazy. I'll just go to the completed auctions and see what people are using for keywords.
Yeah, I do that too. But these days I know most of my keywords. There's another one touching here. Zach's talking about the returns. What was the other option? There was something else I was going to touch on that.
Yeah,
Totally
and I
lost my
totally,
train of thought.
yeah, I totally, I totally sidetracked you. I'm sorry, bud.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, he says eBay didn't want to reimburse me for the loss. Is this normal? So I guess we did cover all that.
Yeah, no. What I was going to say is on the global shipping program, the returns on that, because
Oh,
there's a lot of people that have issues with that. If the item is damaged in the mail and they open up a return on a damaged item through global shipping program, eBay covers 100% of the cost. Now, this was a big question, and Dom had brought it up too. I still get questions. I did a whole video just on that, but there's still so many questions about that. We sell stuff directly to some countries, and the ones that I directly ship to, I have means to get anything I send to that country back for a reasonable price. We even have an account with a British company for shipping. So there's some items I just don't send. Like I don't mess with high-end electronics and stuff like that. I'd never send them overseas. So you got to be careful on stuff like that. You know, any item you send out, no matter where it's going or how big it is a risk. Every single item you ship could be lost, and you could be out the item and the money for the item at any point for 100 different reasons. So, I mean, nothing's really safe, but you know, it's the amount of people trying to screw you are very, very small. And I would say never, ever let that deter you from doing anything on eBay, in my personal opinion, anyway.
yes.
Oop.
Absolutely. I actually saw some videos about talking about that where, I get all hyped up and psyched out too about, oh, is this someone going to rip me off every time there's a kind of question about an item when they get it? But you're right. I don't know the percentages, but it's so low of people that are trying to scam you. Like you're probably less likely to get scammed than you think in your mind.
Yeah, I have people saying I'm going to stop doing eBay. You know, they cited this, that. I'm not going to go into big details, but the point is eBay doesn't know who's lying and who's telling the truth. All they have is two people and two different stories. You know, they side with the customer because they follow the procedure. If they return an item, technically they should get their money back, you know, unless you step in and say, hey, it's not that way. So I don't have any problems. When I first started eBay, I used to be mad when they'd side with somebody, but we've changed up. I'm very careful on how we list. I don't list certain things. I don't have those issues at all anymore. And as a, person who's been a regional and had to deal with court and, unemployment, if you ever had to go to an unemployment hearing for employees, and I've been to dozens and dozens of those types of hearings, it's the littlest thing that can cause you to lose the case and all this stuff. And they're just going by the evidence you supply them. So, what does eBay have other than you saying one thing and the other person saying another? There's no right or wrong answer for those sales because they weren't there when it happened. They don't know. I like back to the eBay not siding with you. If you didn't give them a full refund, eBay would have been fine with that. Just FYI, I wouldn't call them after the fact and say something because you had the option prior to closing the return. The minute you give them the refund, the return's closed.
Yeah.
That's usually where people mess up or mix up on that.
You know what? Why some people, especially who are new dealing with this, maybe their first time they have this happen, they might get confused. Is that when you have the option to hit refund buyer, people might think that if I hit this button, that a full refund is going to go through, but it doesn't. When you hit refund buyer, it brings you to a screen that then gives you a percentage that you could take off of the full refund. So set that to 50%. If you're in a situation like I was in, or one time a guy from California sent back a bunch of comic books without the bags and the boards, and he didn't protect them at all, and they all got damaged on the way back. And so
I saw that video.
Yeah, so eBay helped me out with that situation too. So, but you do have to hit refund buyer, and then you refund the half.
There's one other thing you got to remember not to forget is you got to click that little button that says automatically relist, because if you don't take that button off, you're returning the item, it's going to automatically be relisted if you don't get the little radio button that says relist this item. Mm-hmm. Something you got to hit every single time if you get a bunch of returns. I don't have many, so it's not an issue, but just another aspect to look at.
That's a good business model. Like you've talked about this before as, we're sellers of collectibles. You're going to get more returns for clothes than anything else in my
by far. I got a return, my first return, and I don't know how long. And they opened up a return, and it was for a card they said was the authenticity was in question. And there's no way on earth that the authenticity on this would ever be in question unless you just don't know the item and to begin with. So, You know, we're talking about a 150-year-old item, and they're trying to say it was fake, and it's a piece of paper. I don't know who would have faked a $8 card. You know, it just it fads me. I just taking it back, and I'll just resell it. If it's not the way it was when I sent it to them, I'm just going to keep part of the money. And that's a legit process that eBay will tell you personally that you can do without fail. You know, and again, as I said, once the return's closed, you don't have to deal with them at all ever again. Every time I get a return for something that's BS, and it rarely happens, I'll block them. If somebody makes lowball offers and I tell them I'm not going to take it and they keep making the offer, I'll block them. I've got 70, 80, 100 people on my block list these days, you know, from years of doing this.
Mine's way bigger than that, dude.
It may be bigger than that. I'm just throwing out a number because we've got several accounts.
I hear you, dude. Like I'm quick to block if I don't feel right about a customer.
Yeah, I'm cautious. Anybody who cancels, I usually just automatically block. If they cancel like in the first couple minutes or 20 minutes, it's a different story. But a day or two later, I'm blocking them every time. You know, I don't, you know, bid on anything. The wife bought a shirt, you know, or bid on a shirt the other day. We're not going to bid on it unless I'm going to buy it. So, you know, if you are going to just randomly make some offers on stuff, and then once you get them, turn them down, I'm just blocking you. You know, it works fine. The only sad part is they can still send you a notice or send you nasty emails for, I don't know how long it is, but if they've put in an offer or something, they can keep sending you even after you've blocked them for, I don't know how long, through that same initial listing. And it's not supposed to work like that, just FYI.
Yep.
Once they're blocked, they're supposed to be never able to send you anything, but eBay still hasn't fixed that issue. And I've called it out because literally I've had somebody that would harass the wife, actually. The wife answered him. They were going to come up and kill her, actually. That's one of the conversations.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, true story. My wife will tell you one of these days if you're interested. But it was over an eBay item, and it got to be a big thing, and she called, and she was really upset. She was crying on the phone, and eBay actually helped us, and we reported it to the police department and all this other stuff. It was a long ordeal over something. It was like a $10 or $20 item. The whole thing was over in the first place. You know, it was just crazy. You never know what's going to happen. We're at the 9 o'clock mark here, and that's probably about it, I would say. I see Chris looks like he's hungry here and getting his...
I found gummy bears in my desk.
Oh, geez, gummy bears. Yeah, I'm bad on that. Somebody asked what I was eating in one of the videos where I'm doing the offers. It was gummy bears and Smarties, just FYI.
I love candy.
Yeah, so do I. It's a bad habit, you know. It's about my only vice, I guess you could say. I drink tea, but... You know, I know that's the biggest drug in the world is caffeine, but still, you know. Why don't we, I have Dom here on the first. Why don't we say our parting thoughts here? I'll let Dom go first, and then Chris and I will take up at the end here.
You know, I just want to thank everyone for coming by. I mean, we had a really great showing. I saw a lot of people in the chat saying that, you know, this is their 3 favorite resellers together, and so they're very excited about that. And so that's great to hear. You know, I think all of us probably like you know, like hearing that, and you know, we hope to do more shows together in the future. And you know, it was just a pilot to, you know, just see you know, how it worked. I thought it was a great show, and you know, leave us some feedback in the comments to tell us what you think, what kind of things you'd like to see, maybe even. And we're bouncing around some titles, but I think if people have ideas on what we would title a series together, that might be interesting too. Sometimes it helps to get you know, different opinions on these things. But I had a fun time tonight, and I look forward to more shows together with you too.
Yeah, I definitely had a good time, and I was kind of thinking about a title of the show, and I remembered 3 Men and a Baby, and now 3 Men and an E-Baby. It makes sense. I mean, it's eBay and baby. Anyways, that's a stupid joke. But anyways, I had a good time. Definitely check out all of our channels. We really appreciate your support. Definitely check out our content. We don't get paid much for doing this YouTube stuff. We do this because we're very passionate about reselling. We're very passionate about education. So, you know, all this stuff is free. So definitely go and check out our videos and subscribe to everyone. And I really appreciate you and Don and Dom for coming and hanging out together.
Well, I'd like to first thank Dom and Chris for coming on. It was a pleasure having them both on tonight. I've got interviews with both of them in past videos, so if you want to hear more about them and you haven't subscribed, I don't know why you wouldn't have subscribed, but if you haven't, you can check out the videos as well. You can just see them. I actually have their names in the title of the video. So, you know, Primetime Treasure and Thrift Shop Hustler, they're both in the title. So if you want to see a nice interview with them, again, I want to thank them both for coming on. We shot out original. I think we came up with Reseller University, but again, this is just us. We're open to, you know, everything that can come by this. As much feedback as we can get in here. If you guys liked it, if you guys want to see more of it, comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Again, we talk, you know, outside of this, whether we're on here or not these days. They're both good guys, as I said. I don't associate with the, well, I'm not saying that I don't associate, but I don't get out and you know, cross do stuff on most other channels. But these two guys are the legit deal. They're not scammers. They're not here just to get your money from YouTube or anything like that. I feel that they're both as dedicated as I am. They're both into it. They both know, you know, their stuff. I don't hesitate to share stuff with them that I wouldn't share with other people. They're good guys, you know, and this is honestly, sincerely how I feel. So, you know, hopefully we can keep this going. I do feel that we had a pretty good conversation. I got a lot of people on. We hit almost 200 mark for live people on. You know, we still have almost 140 on. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it. I'd like to thank you all for coming on and spending the time with us tonight. I know we ran a little longer than I had originally anticipated, but conversation took us here, and I really hope you enjoyed it. So I'm going to sign off. I will be live again on Thursday. Marky will be here with us, of course, and we'll touch on some interesting topics. I've got something different probably going on for this Thursday as well. Update, I will have a second channel for art coming up. It's going to the Art Professor. So just FYI, just for those, I don't want to cross sites and have people upset with the content. And it's not going to be anywhere near as many videos, but it's going to be a lot of more interesting and in-depth studies on processes and how to do things. The first one's going to be like something simple, like drawing the human eye and things like that. So just FYI, that's coming down the line here soon. And again, one last thank you to Dom and Chris here. I really appreciated them taking the time out to be here with you guys too. There's not a lot of people that I watch videos on just for time-wise, but I'll play theirs in the background if nothing else. And there's not many that I do that for too. So I'll call you guys out tonight. Glad to have you, and have a good evening as well.